Chapter 476. These thunderbolts have been used by Gang Dalei during his life and death battle with the Ghost Prison Envoy. However, he had not used them since, and they were extremely mysterious. To think that it was a lightning-based treasure. At this moment, Gang Dalei's body was charred black, his clothes torn and tattered. He had a pathetic expression, as if he had suffered a lot. It seemed that the door to the secret room was not so easy to open. Gang Dalei barged in, surprised. His eyes immediately noticed the 9 books on the stone table. Without hesitation, he pounced on them. But just as his hand touched the 9 books, they turned into dust at a speed visible to the naked eye. He did not even get to see a single word. It seemed that these books could only be read once. After that, they would disappear if someone else touched them. Seeing this scene, Suyu could not help but rejoice. Luckily, he had read these books in advance and obtained the legacy of the Thunder Emperor. Gang Dalei froze, his eyes staring blankly. He then flipped the secret room up and down, searching almost every possible place. But he found nothing. His expression turned ugly. What is going on? Did I come to the wrong place? Is this not the place where the legacy of the Thunder Emperor is? His heart was filled with doubt. Standing under the light barrier, it was as if he could not see the environment outside of the light barrier. Hence, he did not notice Suyu's presence. On the other hand, Suyu could clearly observe his every move. In his heart, Suyu was somewhat disappointed. The feeling of being deceived was not a good one. Perhaps Gang Dalei had no choice. After all, the prototype fairy artifact was shocking and could not be leaked. Moreover, there was only one legacy. Withdrawing his gaze, Suyu turned and prepared to leave. But at this moment, Suyu's expression suddenly changed. He saw another figure appear at the door of the secret room. It was Yang Yidao, who had a faint smile on his face. Gang Dalei turned his head to look, and his expression changed. His expression became extremely ugly. "You followed me." Yang Yidao stood at the door, completely blocking Gang Dalei in the secret room. He laughed coldly. "I knew it would not be so simple. To think that you already knew of the existence of another secret room. Tell me, what is this secret room?" Yang Yidao narrowed his eyes as he observed the surroundings. Gang Dalei's face was filled with fear. He struggled for a moment, then sighed. "It is the legacy of the Thunder Emperor." Yang Yidao's face suddenly froze as he cried out involuntarily, "What did you say?" As he spoke, Gang Dalei took out a yellowish ancient letter. On it was recorded that within the Great Thunder Hall, there was a mysterious passageway that led to the Thunder Emperor's inheritance. After looking, Yang Yidao came to a sudden realization. "I was wondering why there was nothing in the Great Thunder Hall. So there's another universe." Immediately after, his cold gaze suddenly shot towards Gang Dalei. "Hand it over." Gang Dalei laughed bitterly. "What you saw is what I saw. I don't know who beat me to it." "Humph. This is the first time the Great Thunder Hall has been opened. Apart from you, there is no one else who knows about this place. Since you are unwilling to hand it over, I will come and get it myself." Yang Yidao's aura was piercingly cold, and he suddenly attacked. Gang Dalei wanted to cry, but no tears came out. Not only did he not obtain the inheritance, but he was also forced to die in a corner. "You're going too far." Gang Dalei's grief turned into anger. Even he felt wronged. The light and shadow around him vanished, revealing his true form. Yang Yidao was shocked. "An alien race is a flood dragon? No wonder I felt an inhuman aura from your body. So you are a flood dragon." His eyes glowed with an excited glow. "Looks like I have gained something again. It is rumored that flood dragons have a weak bloodline of the real dragon. Based on your blood essence, you might be able to sense the location of the real dragon. If I can obtain the remains of the real dragon, my gains would not be any weaker than the inheritance of the Thunder Emperor." Real dragon? Suyu was secretly shocked. He had already completed the task of helping Gang Dalei find the Thunder Herb. Next, he had to find a few ingredients to heal his eyes. He had already obtained the undead herb of the Netherworld, and he was only missing the blood of the real dragon and the lightning avoiding Silver Pearl. With the 3 combined, he would be able to cultivate a type of evil destroying silver eye successfully. He could use it to neutralize the injuries caused by the heavenly wrath, allowing his eyes to recover. If Gang Dalei could really sense the location of the real dragon, wouldn't he be able to obtain the blood of the real dragon? In the secret chamber, Yang Yidao let out a disdainful laugh. I am someone who has tried to make a breakthrough to the fairy realm. Even though I failed among the half-gods, my abilities are unparalleled. You should just give up on that thought. After his speech, Yang Yidao casually waved his palm toward Gang Dalei's giant body, which was 20 Chinese feet tall. Gang Dalei let out a loud roar. His giant body exploded with a powerful force, and his fists collided. With a whooshing sound, Gang Dalei retreated continuously, after which he crashed heavily into the light barrier. His face turned red. On the other hand, Yang Yidao's eyes were filled with disdain. Humph, you are only SOSO. After his speech, he took a big step and headed toward Gang Dalei. His eyes glowed with murderous intent. Gang Dalei was in danger. There was no other way to escape. How could he leave? However, at that moment, Gang Dalei suddenly took out a pure white jade plate from his robes and crazily injected his blood essence into it. With a cracking sound, the jade plate exploded on the spot. However, Gang Dalei disappeared into thin air. Because of that, when he reappeared, he was in a valley that was far away from the Great Thunder Palace. His expression was pale, as if he had just survived a disaster. Luckily, I had Qin Zhuyang's curse technique, which allowed me to set up a substitute puppet here in advance. That was how I managed to escape by a hair's breadth. As it turned out, after he had left the Thunder Emperor Mountain, he had specially found a secret place to set up his escape technique. That technique had ensured his life. After which, Gang Dalei let out a bitter smile. I did not manage to find a single item that the old man needed. How am I going to account to him when I return? After muttering to himself for a moment, Gang Dalei sighed. Looks like I can only place my hopes on the last exchange meet. If I am lucky, I might be able to exchange for the Thunder Her from someone else. However, the price I have to pay will be huge. I have to take a risk and barge into that place. After his speech, his figure disappeared quickly. In the secret room, Yang Yidao was holding a scarecrow in each hand. His expression was sinister. Curse technique. Humph. To think that you managed to escape. With a furious grunt, he left immediately, quickly searching for Gang Dalei. Su Yu, who had witnessed everything, decided to stay behind for safety reasons. He wanted to wait for Yang Yidao to leave, a half-god who had failed to make a breakthrough to the fairy realm. That kind of ability was probably below that of the fairy realm. It was not wise to go out and fight him head-on. After thinking for some time, Su Yu took out a jade box. Within the box were the seeds of the Thunder Herb, a total of 10 seeds. In the outside world, it was almost impossible for the seeds to survive. However, in Su Yu's hands, that might not be the case. With a shred of anticipation, Su Yu's soul entered the garden of the 9 jade spiritual pearl. With a thought, the weeds in the garden were swept away, revealing a piece of golden soil. This was the supreme growing soil, which was extremely rare in the outside world. According to what the fox had said, the supreme growing soil was an earth-based treasure. Any kind of plant could be grown on it. Chapter 477. With a thought, he scattered the 10 seeds of the Thunder Herb into the supreme growing soil. The seemingly hard supreme growing soil was like soft water. When the black seeds landed in it, they sank gently and were enveloped by the golden soil. A unique fragrance wafted out from the depths of the soil. Just taking a light breath made one feel extremely comfortable. Su Yu was filled with anticipation. He did not know if the seeds of the Thunder Herb could really survive in the supreme growing soil, and how long would it take for them to fully mature. Just as Su Yu's soul was about to turn and leave the 9 jade spiritual pearl, he suddenly heard a soft sound of something breaking out of a shell. Su Yu was slightly stunned, turning his gaze back to the supreme growing soil. Gradually, his face was filled with shock. He could hear the sound of something breaking out of shell coming from within the golden soil. Moreover, there were 10 areas where the soil was wriggling weakly, as if something was continuously drilling out from deep within the soil. Finally, as Su Yu's pupils shrank, the golden soil was finally broken open, revealing an emerald green seedling. That seedling was silvery white in color, with a thread of lightning circulating within it. Thunder herb seedling? Su Yu lost his voice in shock. The seedling of the thunder herb that Yang Yi Dao had snatched away previously was like this. In the short span of a few breaths, witnessing a seed grow into a seedling caused Su Yu to be dumbfounded. The scene in front of him even caused Su Yu to doubt if the seed in front of him was the legendary thunder herb seed that could not be cultivated successfully. Only when Su Yu regained his senses did he become overjoyed. At this moment, he finally understood the significance of the supreme growing soil as an earth-based treasure. It was no wonder that it was so difficult to obtain a single seed. It was too nature-defying. With such a garden of supreme growing soil, any spirit herb or divine herb could be cultivated successfully in a short period of time. Based on the current speed, 1 day was equivalent to 1 year of growth for the thunder herb. 2 months later, when Su Yu left this place, he would be able to obtain 10 50-year-old thunder herbs. At that time, the armor that was made would have even stronger defenses against lightning. Filled with excitement, Su Yu withdrew from the great surprise. This pool of supreme growing soil was Su Yu's most important secret apart from the divine nine-dragon cauldron. After thinking for some time, Su Yu had an idea. The 9-jade spiritual pearl acted according to Su Yu's idea and set up a layer of hazy light barrier around the whole nursery. Apart from Su Yu himself, anyone who entered the 9-jade spiritual pearl would not be able to discover the existence of the supreme growing soil. After everything that happened the night before, Su Yu's soul withdrew from the 9-jade spiritual pearl and returned to his body. It was only after a long while that Su Yu recovered from his shock. With a flip of his palm, he took out a jade seal that emitted a shocking aura. It was Su Yu's greatest gain from this trip, a prototype fairy artifact. Although it was only at the lowest stage of fusion and was just a basic product formed by the fusion of some materials, it did not hinder the power of a semi-manufactured spiritual artifact. It also did not hinder its potential to become a celestial artifact. Su Yu's eyes were filled with anticipation as he dripped a drop of his own blood essence into it. Sure enough, he discovered that the semi-manufactured spiritual artifact did not have any obstructions, and Su Yu was able to recognize it as its master easily. At the same time, a weak connection appeared in Su Yu's mind. 5-elemental strong thunder seal, a celestial artifact. It can absorb the thunderbolts of heaven and earth for one's own use. It can also be used to release the thunderbolts of heaven and earth, using the thunder seal to suppress all living beings in the world. Its power depends on the wielder's cultivation level and the strength of the thunderbolts of heaven and earth absorbed. Hearing this, Su Yu was shocked. Absorbing the thunderbolts of heaven and earth was completely absorbing the disastrous thunder of heaven and earth. This celestial artifact was specially created to contend against the heavenly disaster. Moreover, the thunderbolts that were absorbed could be refined and used to deal with enemies. Su Yu was filled with anticipation as to how powerful it would be. However, it was a pity that the 5-elemental strong thunder seal had only gone through the most basic fusion stage. It had not been truly tested before the Thunder Emperor disappeared without a trace, leaving behind this prototype fairy artifact that did not store any thunderbolts of heaven and earth. Suddenly, Su Yu's eyes turned slightly. Speaking of the disastrous thunder, wasn't there a great danger in his body? On the day when he had broken through to Heaven Master, he had almost been killed by the thunderbolts of heaven and earth. A tiny bit of the weak, disastrous thunder of heaven and earth had entered Su Yu's body, and he had suppressed it forcefully. Now he could try out the effects of the 5-elemental strong thunder seal. With a thought, the 5-elemental strong thunder seal released a greenish-yellow glow. The flying dragon carved on the seal seemed to have come to life, flying around continuously. An inexplicable pressure unconsciously flowed out. At that moment, Su Yu felt an intense pain in his abdomen. Looking within himself, he could not help but be shocked. The purple thunderbolt in his body and the pale disastrous thunder of heaven and earth were being compressed continuously. The disastrous thunder, which was only the size of an eyeball, was shrinking continuously. Very quickly, it was the size of a thumb. As for the purple thunderbolt, it was instantly compressed into the size of a strand of hair. Not only was the disastrous thunder being suppressed, even the normal thunderbolts were completely suppressed. The two of them were compressed to their limits. The thunderbolts of heaven and earth, which made Suyu feel uneasy, were completely suppressed in the blink of an eye. Along with the strand of hair-like thunderbolt, they left Suyu's body through his pores and were absorbed into the Imperial Jade Seal. The flying dragon on the Imperial Jade Seal let out a soft roar. After flying for a while, it suddenly spat out bolts of purplish-white gas from its mouth. Seeing this scene, Suyu was shocked. The gas of the origin of thunder. Suyu was not unfamiliar with this item. He still had a 5-elemental origin crystal with him. That bit of the gas of the origin of thunder circled in the air once before returning to Suyu's body. Suyu secretly looked within himself and was shocked to discover that within his dantian, there was an additional pale white crystal. It was permeated with faintly discernible thunderbolts. If it was not the origin of thunder, what else could it be? Why would the origin of thunder become a vital energy crystal within my dantian? Suyu was surprised. He casually tried to move his spirit energy, waving his palm. Crackle, crackle, a shocking scene appeared. This casual palm actually contained a bit of disastrous thunder. The power of the palm had increased by several times. Just the bit of disastrous thunder energy contained within it was not something an ordinary half-god could withstand. In fact, how many of the strong fighters below the fairy realm who had not experienced the disastrous thunder could withstand the power of the disastrous thunder? So he was pleasantly surprised. A mere bit of weak disastrous thunder, after being absorbed by the 5-elemental strong thunder seal, had returned to Suyu's body. If he could absorb a complete disastrous thunder, what kind of power would the 5-elemental strong thunder seal display? His greatest threat had been resolved, and Suyu had also obtained the origin of thunder. Now that the ice, fire, and thunder elements had all been cultivated to their limits, reaching the origin state, how powerful would the 3 elements be if they were to be used at the same time? Suyu could not help but ponder. After muttering to himself for a moment, Suyu kept the 5-elemental strong thunder seal. Calculating the time, he had already been there for half a day. Yang Yidao should have already left. Without thinking too much, Suyu broke through the ground and returned to the outside world. His eyes flashed, and he prepared to leave this place. But suddenly, a surprised voice could be heard. "Oh, it's you? I thought that the person who got here first was that cursing lad." Chapter 478. His aura was completely restrained, no different from that of a normal person. Only his cold gaze was like the edge of a blade, causing others to not dare look him in the eye. This person was Yang Yidao, who was supposed to be chasing after Gang Dalei. He had not chased out of the Great Thunder Hall, but had instead hidden himself, waiting for this moment. In the secret chamber, I could faintly feel a prying gaze outside the light barrier. Combined with Gang Dalei's words, I thought that the legacy of the Thunder Emperor had been stolen by someone else. I thought it was the curse technique kid among the 5 of us. After all, his abilities are not bad, and his technique is strange. But I did not expect that person to be you, the weakest of the 3 wandering martial artists. How unexpected. Yang Yidao examined Suyu, clicking his tongue in wonder. Suyu was secretly surprised. This person's senses were strong, as expected of a top half-god who had failed to break through to the heavenly tribulation. He had senses that normal half-gods did not have. Furthermore, this person was very scheming. He had clearly noticed Suyu's presence, but pretended not to know, pretending to be chasing after Gang Dalei. In reality, he was hiding in the Great Thunder Hall, secretly waiting for Suyu to appear. Since things had come to this, there was no point in saying anything. They could only fight. Seeing Suyu prepare for battle, Yang Yidao let out a faint smile. Not planning to beg for mercy, hand over the legacy of the Thunder Emperor, and I might spare your life." Suyu calmly said, "Is that so? Would you allow someone who knows you have the legacy of the Thunder Emperor to live?" The legacy of the Thunder Emperor was no small matter. Once it was spread, Yang Yidao would definitely be attacked. Even if he returned alive, the legacy would belong to the faction. How could he have a share? Thus, regardless of whether Suyu compromised or not, he would not be able to escape the fate of being killed. "You are quite smart, but you're just a ghost who understands." Yang Yidao's words were filled with ridicule. Suyu remained silent, forming a seal with one hand, activating the 9 yin-yang formation. At the same time, he prepared the Eternal Stone King armor. Yang Yidao examined the 9 yin-yang formation, a little surprised. A full set of middle-grade divine artifacts. "I cannot tell. Your abilities are weak, but you have managed to gather a decent set of divine artifacts. Since that is the case, I shall accept this set of divine artifacts on your behalf." His index and middle fingers were in the shape of a knife. A strand of sharp saber chi emitted a shocking spiritual pressure, which was quite shocking. Previously, it was precisely this kind of knife energy that had rendered Suyu powerless to resist. Suyu was expressionless. He waved his hand, and 9 steel needles hovered above Suyu's head, rotating rapidly. At the same time, a golden light flashed in Suyu's palm, and the golden scale dagger appeared in his hand. Yang Yidao had a disdainful smile on his lips as he slashed down with his finger. In an instant, the blade energy continued to chop down with the momentum to crush everything. All of a sudden, Suyu felt a murderous aura assaulting him. The blood in his body sped up abruptly as he endured a great pressure. However, Suyu's expression was as calm as ever. Without thinking, he slashed with a golden scale dagger in his hand. With a clang, the invisible saber chi collided with the golden scale dagger, causing a metallic sound to ring out. Suyu felt as if he had been hit by a huge force. His wrist was in pain, and the golden scale dagger in his hand almost fell out of his grasp. However, the sword energy did not stop. Instead, it continued to attack Suyu. At that critical moment, the bronze mask on Suyu's face suddenly shone with a green light. Suyu's entire person disappeared into thin air. All that was left was the mask floating in the air, as well as the 9 steel needles that were spinning continuously above it. With a clang, the mask was sent flying by the saber energy. However, it did not leave any mark on the mask. The mask stabilized. With a flash of light, Suyu's blood-haired figure appeared once again. Yang Yidao could not help but feel surprised. Eternal mask? Space-type magical treasures are rare. I have to say that even I do not have the magical treasures on your body. Suyu's eyes were calm. You speak too much nonsense. After saying this, Suyu did not say another word. With a whoosh, the spiraling 9 yin-yang formation suddenly turned into numerous fragmentary lines, enveloping Yang Yidao. Yang Yidao was shocked at first, then let out a cold laugh. No matter how good a magical treasure is, if the abilities of the person casting it are too weak, it will not be of any use. However, he did not move an inch, allowing the 9 yin-yang formation to envelop him. The black ring on his finger shone with a dim light. A dark blue, cold, curved blade appeared in his palm. The curved blade was like the moon, emitting a cold glow. It had a saber energy that was far stronger than before, sweeping in all directions. So he was on his guard. The blue curved blade gave him a dangerous feeling. I seal. Seeing that he was about to be surrounded and killed by the 9 yin-yang formation, Yang Yidao was not afraid, sweeping the blue curved blade in his hand. Ding, 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 a crisp sound of collision could be heard. The 9 steel needles were all sent flying. The 9 yin-yang formation was broken. It was evident how strong it was. Do you have any more moves? If not, then so be it. Yang Yidao let out a cold grunt. However, Suyu had taken out a purple umbrella at some point in time, calmly opening it. In an instant, a ball of purple light enveloped everything within a 1,000-foot radius. The air was like a furnace, burning with a shocking purple, raging flame. Yang Yi-Dao was caught off guard, instantly engulfed by the terrifying, raging flame. The white robe on his body was immediately set ablaze. Shui Gui's purple sun, incredible umbrella. Why is it in your hands? Yang Yi-Dao was a little shocked. Suyu calmly replied, "Of course I snatched it." After saying this, he activated the purple sun incredible umbrella, releasing its power to the maximum. However, not only was Yang Yi-Dao not afraid, his face was filled with mockery. "I said, the treasure is fine, but the person is too weak. Die." Yang Yi-Dao suddenly let out a ferocious roar, the blue scimitar in his hands crazily imbued with a large amount of spiritual artifacts. The blue glow of the scimitar was magnificent, illuminating half of the heavens. A 30-foot-long saber, Qi, swept across the area in a domineering manner. Wherever the blade energy passed, it created a tornado. The raging flames within a 1,000-foot radius were extinguished in an instant. The purple sun incredible umbrella was also broken. One blade and another blade. Even someone as strong as Shui Ling did not dare face the purple sun incredible umbrella head-on. However, Yang Yi-Dao only needed one blade. In terms of abilities, he might even be stronger than Shui Ling. "What else do you have? Take it out. I will let you die in peace." Yang Yi-Dao's eyes were like lightning. At that moment, the figure holding the blade was like a peerless god of war. Suyu's expression was calm as he kept the purple sun incredible umbrella. He then raised his hand and waved, keeping the disintegrating 9 yin-yang formation. A greenish-yellow glow flickered in his hand. A jade seal with a dragon and phoenix carved on it appeared. Bolts of lightning flickered within the seal, releasing a terrifying aura. The Thunderbolt Origin crystal in Suyu's body continuously turned into the Origin's energy, entering the 5 elemental strong Thunder Seal. A beam of green and yellow light suddenly erupted, making Suyu's face look even more mysterious. "Since you want to try, I shall grant you your wish." Yang Yi-Dao initially maintained his cold smile. However, his expression gradually turned serious, gradually revealing an astonished expression. Disastrous thunder. His voice trembled. It was a tremble of fear. Chapter 479. Having failed to break through to the fairy realm, Yang Yi-Dao was extremely sensitive to the disastrous thunder. Yang Yi-Dao's heart sank when he saw the traces of tribulation lightning shooting out from the tribulation lightning. As he trembled in fear, Yang Yi-Dao instinctively weaved signs with one hand. 5 pearls of different colors flew out from the ring on his index finger. One of the purple pearls was placed in front of Yang Yi-Dao. It was infused with spirit energy, and a purple pillar of light shot into the sky, enveloping Yang Yi-Dao within it. It was the Dry Cloud 5 elemental formation. This formation required 5 people to activate it at the same time. Hence, even though it was powerful, it could not be fully activated. Suyu's expression was calm, and he activated the Celestial Cloud Strong Thunder Seal without hesitation. The air vibrated, and a talisman formed by lightning flew out from the 5 elemental Strong Thunder Seal. The talisman was in the shape of a dragon, but it was only the size of a palm. From afar, it looked like a small, transparent, 5-color dragon. The only difference was that the disastrous thunder contained within the lightning made one feel uneasy. "Go!" Suyu looked disdainfully, letting out a grunt. The 5-colored dragon turned into a 5-colored afterimage as it charged forward. Yang Yi-Dao only had time to swing his knife once, and the dragon-shaped talisman was 10 feet away from him. The terrifying knife energy that could cut through anything appeared once again. The knife that had easily sent the 9 yin-yang formation and the purple sun incredible umbrella flying struck the dragon-shaped talisman. The talisman glowed, and it resisted the attack. A weak dragon roar could be heard from the talisman, and it collided with the purple pillar of light. Crack! A fine cracking sound spread to the ears, emitting a hair-raising sound. Cracks appeared on the purple pillar of light, after which, with a bang, it shattered on the spot. Even though the disastrous Thunder Talisman had dimmed by more than half, it still had half of the Thunderbolt's power. The dragon-shaped talisman was no longer obstructed, and it landed on Yang Yidao's body. With a thunderous rumble that resounded in all directions, the remaining half of the Thunder Rune completely exploded. The lightning flickered, and a destructive aura spread in all directions. Yang Yidao was engulfed by it, and his body was engulfed by the lightning. The area a mile around him was instantly enveloped by 5 colors, and it was difficult for one to look at it directly. After a short while, when everything vanished in a thin air, the ground where Yang Yidao was had a huge pit with a diameter of 3 zhang. As for Yang Yidao himself, his protective spiritual energy had been shattered into pieces. Every inch of his clothes had been torn to shreds, and his body was badly mutilated. Blood flowed down his legs and flowed onto the ground. The hand holding the blue moon scimitar trembled slightly, showing the injuries on his body. The scariest thing was that his right hand, which was holding the saber, had the most serious injury because it was holding the blue moon curved saber to resist the thunder. His entire arm was almost turned into minced meat, and his index and middle fingers were nowhere to be seen. This attack nearly took Yang Yidao's life. If not for the fact that the dry cloud 5 elemental formations beads had neutralized half of its might, the other party would have been dead by now. Now, he had only suffered some injuries that were not light. In his eyes, there was both the joy of surviving a calamity and the hatred that was as deep as the sea. Blood spurted from his mouth, and his killing intent was awe-inspiring. Good, good, good. Ever since I started cultivating, this is the first time I've been injured to such an extent. Even if you die, you can be proud. Suyu's face darkened slightly. How is he still not dead? To be able to survive after being struck by a semi-manufactured spiritual artifact, he is really strong. Based on Suyu's estimations, even Xueling, who had a physical body of the fairy realm, might not be able to survive. Yang Yidao was a half-god who had broken through to the fairy realm. His abilities were different from normal half-gods, and he was unexpectedly strong. Yang Yidao let out a fierce grunt, and he took out a bottle of elixirs from his robes. So he took a look, and his pupils shrank. Flesh regeneration elixir. So you had a deep impression of that elixir. It could easily heal the injuries of a crippled person. After drinking the elixir, Yang Yidao's broken fingers grew back at an astonishing speed. His injuries were completely healed in the blink of an eye. Suyu was shocked. That was not right. Even if it was the flesh regeneration elixir, it would take at least 10 days to half a month to heal a crippled person. How nature-defying was it to recover so easily? Didn't that mean that as long as he still had a breath, he would be invincible? This flesh spiritual elixir was exchanged for before I entered the mysterious heavenly divine pavilion with my life savings, just in case I was injured by a strong enemy. To think that not only did I not meet a strong enemy, but I was also severely injured by you. Yang Yidao's words were filled with deep hatred. So you could die now. Yang Yidao took a deep breath, and his aura changed abruptly. Ripples of vital energy appeared within his abundant and majestic spirit energy. Humph! Even though I failed to break through to the fairy realm, one of the 3 spirit energy crystals had already turned into a vital energy crystal. I had hidden it until now in order to catch my enemy off guard. To think that I would use it on you. That was Yang Yidao's greatest trump card. He had actually hidden it from everyone, and had 1 foot in the ranks of the fairy realm, becoming a strong martial artist of the half-fairy realm. Die! Yang Yidao's eyes were like lightning, and he imbued vital energy into the blue moon curved knife in his hands. The blue moon curved knife released an unprecedented blue glow, and a frightening knife energy assaulted Suyu's face like a tsunami. At once, Suyu felt pressured, and his breathing quickened. His expression gradually turned serious. How could the power of a treasure imbued with vital energy be as simple as doubling? The current Yang Yidao gave Suyu a feeling of fear. If Xueling were to face him head-on, He might not be Yang Yidao's match. His power was beyond expectations. Heaven questioning 3 techniques. Yang Yidao's eyes exploded with an unprecedentedly fierce divine glow, and he swept across the sky. The long sword in his hands slashed out a frightening knife energy that was 100 Chinese feet long. The giant, transparent shadow of the knife looked as if it wanted to split the sky into 2. Su Yu felt a sense of danger, like a candle flickering in the wind. Without hesitation, Su Yu weaved signs with both hands, forcefully activating the 5 elemental strong thunder seal, and formed a thunderbolt symbol. Because of the depletion of the disastrous thunder that was formed this time around was less than half of what it was originally. But even if it was half, it was enough to severely injure Yang Yidao. Rumble. 100 Chinese feet of knife energy swept over. With a creak, the dragon-shaped symbol exploded into 5-colored thunder arcs on the spot and was destroyed by the knife energy, leaving nothing behind. This scene caused Su Yu's pupils to dilate and his heart to sink. The attack of a half-fairy was too terrifying. He weaved signs with one hand, and a layer of black armor appeared. At the same time, the spirit energy in his body surged out wildly, turning into a spirit energy armor that protected his body. With the Eternal Stone King armor, Su Yu felt much more at ease. But at his chest area, the giant hole emitted an ice-cold sensation. Su Yu's intuition told him that he would still die from this knife. His eyes glowed coldly. At this critical moment, Su Yu's heart was filled with determination. He could only try that technique. With a thought, 3 different colors appeared on the surface of Su Yu's body at the same time. A pale white color, a scarlet green color, and a 5-colored color. They were the ice, fire, and thunder origins. The 3 origins appeared at the same time, forming 3 small balls of origins, revolving at the center of Su Yu's palm. Every origin was extremely powerful. If they were to explode, even Su Yu himself would be severely injured, and he might even die on the spot. However, at that moment, Su Yu made an extremely dangerous move. He actually gradually brought the 3 origins closer together. Forget about the Berserk Thunder origin source. The Ice origin source and the Fire origin source were mutually restraining origins. Even the slightest contact could cause an explosion. If the 2 origins were to explode at the same time, so you would most likely die a horrible death. But just as the Ice and Fire origins were about to collide, Su Yu's heart skipped a beat. The Thunderbolt origin abruptly inserted itself, blocking the center of the Ice and Fire origins. The 3 balls of origins immediately formed a string. At a glance, it looked like a tricolored Buddhist bead. Just as the Thunderbolt origin and the Ice and Fire origins came into contact, forming a string, suddenly, the 3 balls of origins became dim. Traces of black cracks appeared on the balls. Traces of destructive aura poured out in torrents. Su Yu's expression sank. Not good. The fusion has failed. Feeling that the 3 origins were about to explode, Su Yu's expression turned ugly. He had originally planned to use the fusion of the origins to create a brand new technique. But from the looks of it, the fusion of the origins was much more difficult than he had imagined. Now that the fusion had failed, the 3 balls of origins were about to explode. That level of might was sufficient to annihilate him in both body and soul. His heart was thumping wildly, his pupils dilating into a line. Yang Yidao, whose face was filled with murderous intent, also felt that the violent origins were on the verge of exploding. Looking at them, his expression changed. "You are crazy. Do you want to commit suicide by fusing the origins?" His face was filled with fear, his eyelids twitching wildly. He looked fearful. In fact, he was even more terrified than when he had encountered the disastrous thunder. Chapter 480. At that moment, more and more black cracks appeared on the surface of the 3 origins. They were like 3 pitch-black objects, releasing an extraordinary destructive power. They were on the verge of exploding. Su Yu's eyes were also filled with fear. Without thinking, he shot a string of origins, which were about to explode, toward Yang Yidao. He himself, with a flash of the bronze mask, immediately hid in the space within the mask. Beneath the eternal stone king armor, spirit energy surged out to protect his body. Yang Yidao saw the pitch-black origins flying toward him, and his soul almost left his body. Without any more energy, he crazily injected his vital energy into the purple bead. With vital energy entering, the light beam shot out by the bead became even more powerful. It had previously withstood an attack from a later stage fairy. Just as the two of them were about to defend themselves, the three pitch-black origins exploded. They first shrunk to the size of a sesame seed. Then, they suddenly expanded 10,000 times, covering a 10-mile radius. A destructive power that contained ice, fire, and thunder origins formed a 10-mile black mushroom cloud, causing an unprecedentedly violent explosion. The destructive power swept through the surroundings in a shocking manner. Within a 10-mile radius, everything was destroyed by the explosion, turning into ruins within the black mushroom cloud. Within a 100-mile radius, the ground shook violently. Within a 1,000-mile radius, the ground still shook slightly. This ripple carried a terrifying destructive power, shaking every corner of the 7th level of the Divine Pavilion. In the stone forest, the 100 people who were fighting fiercely felt a tremor coming from somewhere. They stopped at the same time, their faces filled with shock. That is, a fairy realm fighter? A fairy realm fighter? Shunga had a faint smile on her face as she looked at the humans killing each other. Suddenly, her expression changed, and she looked in Su Yu's direction seriously. Bao Chang's destructive aura. When did another monster with the abilities of the fairy realm appear in the mysterious, heavenly divine pavilion? Her eyes glowed, and she said resolutely, "We cannot wait any longer. The situation will change if we delay. There are dangers that I did not expect in the mysterious, heavenly divine pavilion." After saying this, she led the 4 great ancient clans toward the battle within the stone forest. At the same time, Ghost King Bai Chi, who was sitting cross-legged on the peak of the mountain, suddenly awoke. He looked in the direction of Su Yu in shock. What a powerful ripple! Which expert did it? At this time, a painting flew out from his bosom. The old man, with the air of a transcendent being, was also very serious. Unbelievable! I smell several kinds of mixed source auras. Could it be an explosion caused by the fusion of source auras? But if that's the case, isn't it too unrealistic? Although source is not rare in the continent of the 9 provinces, those who possess more than 2 types of source are extremely rare. However, if several people who possess source are gathered together, even if all 5 elements of source are gathered together, it would still be impossible to achieve such a level of power. What exactly is going on? Speaking of Su Yu, he and Yang Yidao were at the center of this shocking explosion. Everything within 10 miles had been razed to the ground, leaving behind only endless ruins and scorched earth. Even the Thunder Emperor Mountain, which had existed since ancient times, was destroyed in a single day. The mountain collapsed and turned into broken rocks of different sizes that floated in the void. As for Yang Yidao, his entire body was scorched black, and he had already become a black charcoal. Apart from the white teeth, there was only a piece of charred skin. The blue moon scimitar in his hands was broken into pieces. A top-middle gray divine artifact had been shattered into pieces just like that. At this moment, Yang Yidao's aura was like a game, and he was only left with one breath. Even opening his eyes was extremely strenuous. His eyes were filled with fear. The explosion caused by the fusion of 3 types of source was strangely 100 times more powerful than he had expected. He had almost been killed on the spot. If no one came to save him, he would die there that very day. But with a glance, he was the only one present. As for Su Yu, the instigator of the explosion, he had died to the fusion source that he had created. Thinking of this, Yang Yidao finally felt a little consoled. Creak, but at this moment, a ripple could be felt from the ruins. It was a bronze mask that was in pieces. Its right eye was completely broken, and it flew out shakily with a dim green glow. With a creak, a figure in black armor fell out from within. It was Suyu. He was not dead, but he was not far from death. His face was as pale as a piece of paper, without the slightest trace of human color. His spirit energy had been completely squeezed out. The body beneath the armor was bleeding profusely, dyeing half of his body red. If one were to look inside himself, they would realize that Su Yu's energy channels were almost completely broken. The two spirit energy crystals in his dantian were showing signs of shattering. Once they shattered, his cultivation level would be crippled. His bones had also been shattered in many places, and they were all comminuted fractures. At this moment, Su Yu was lying on the ground, unable to move. His ending was not much better than Yang Yidao's. Su Yu laughed bitterly. He had never thought that his fusion source would be so unimaginably terrifying. Even he, the caster, had almost been killed. The Eternal Mask had shattered and was destroyed. The Eternal Stone King armor had also suffered an intense impact. A new crack had appeared on the hole at the chest area. In reality, it was the Eternal Stone King armor that had blocked 99% of the impact. Otherwise, Su Yu would have been turned to dust. With a bitter smile, a bottle of elixir appeared in the cosmos mirror. It was Phoenix Master Chio's Frost Moondew elixir, which could replenish spirit energy. In the past, Su Yu could not bear to use it. But now, it was finally time to save his life. His fingers moved with difficulty, taking out an elixir and placing it in his mouth. This seemingly simple action took all of Su Yu's energy. His whole body was in extreme pain, causing him to break out in a cold sweat. Luckily, after the elixir entered his body, it quickly turned into spirit energy, nourishing the spirit energy crystals that were about to shatter. It slightly recovered, temporarily alleviating the fate of his cultivation level being crippled. At the same time, the spirit energy started to nourish his broken muscles and bones, slowly healing them. With this, his life was no longer in danger. He only needed a few days to recover. But such a huge commotion had attracted the attention of countless people. Su Yu, who had regained some of his mobility, hobbled toward Yang Yidao. He took out the golden scaled dagger expressionlessly, mincing Yang Yidao's heart to pieces, ending his last bit of life. Just as he was about to leave, Su Yu suddenly stepped on a hard object. Looking down, it was the black ring on Yang Yidao's index finger. This caused Su Yu to be extremely excited. A space storage artifact. This was not the first time Yang Yidao had displayed this item. How many good items could there be in a storage artifact of a half-fairy? Just the dry cloud, 5 elemental formation alone was enough to excite Su Yu. Sweeping his gaze across the area, Su Yu found the purple pearl, which had a dim spiritual light. Then, he quickly prepared to leave. However, right at this moment, 2 sounds of air tearing could be heard. Su Yu glanced sideways, his expression changing. The people who had arrived had shocked him. At the same time, his expression sank. Chapter 481. In his field of vision, 2 female figures were rapidly flying in his direction. One of them had a petite figure, as exquisite as a fairy. Who else could it be but Qin Xiener? The other person was cold and arrogant, her expression cold and elegant. It was Long Wuxin. But both of them had expressions of unease and panic. Their bodies were weak, especially Long Wuxin. Her body even looked like it had some injuries. They seemed to have sensed the earth-shattering commotion and were flying toward the area, avoiding some sort of danger. Su Yu had experienced Long Wuxin's abilities. If she opened the ancient box, she would undoubtedly be the #1 female fighter in the Jinlong continent. She might even be able to fight Xueling. But someone as powerful as her was in such a sorry state. It could be seen that the person chasing them was unusually frightening. It might even be another Yang Yidao, a half-fairy level fighter. Su Yu's expression changed. He once again wore the broken mask on his face. Even though it was broken, it could cover a large part of his face. Only his eyes were exposed, but they were still difficult to see through. Brother Black Snow. Qin Xiener saw the red-haired, white-robed figure from afar. She recognized Su Yu and was overjoyed. On the other hand, Long Wuxin was surprised at first, then delighted. Then, She became suspicious of the situation. Finally, her expression turned grave. "We should not have come. We have implicated Sir Black Snow for no reason. They had been chased and happened to be hundreds of miles away. When they heard the deafening sound, they thought it was a powerful fighter. They had wanted to seek help or shift the blame. But what they saw was the heavily injured Suyu. His injuries were even more serious than theirs. Sienna, Miss Long, what happened?" Since things had come to this, he could not abandon Sienna, who was in danger. Long Wuxin said anxiously, "Leave quickly. Do not stop. You'll catch up soon." So you looked behind them. The horizon was vast and empty. However, you could keenly sense an aura that could make one's heart palpitate, and it was getting closer and closer. What a powerful aura! The person had not arrived, but the aura was already there. This person was extremely powerful. Even Yang Yidao had not given Suyu such pressure. Who was this person? But he did not have time to think. Suyu weaved signs with one hand, casting a technique on the spot. An anxious look appeared on Long Wuxin's face. "Let's go quickly. Don't waste time. The opponent's movement technique is extremely frightening. If we delay for even a moment..." His words came to an abrupt halt as he looked in shock at Suyu, who had taken out a foot-long warship model from his bosom. As Suyu weaved signs with one hand, the warship expanded with the wind. In the blink of an eye, it became a giant warship that was 1,000 feet long. "Come up quickly." While Long Wuxin was dumbfounded, Suyu leaped onto the warship and injected spiritual energy into the compass quickly. Long Wuxin regained her senses, and her face was filled with shock. Semi-manufactured spiritual artifact. She could not imagine what kind of great opportunity Suyu had to go through to get a semi-manufactured spiritual artifact. After the two of them flew up, Qin Sienner was pleasantly surprised, but at the same time, she frowned in worry. Suyu looked at her and revealed a loving look. He then started the warship without another word. With a whoosh, the battleship cut through the blue sky. Its speed had already reached the level of the fairy realm. Previously, if Suyu had the chance to activate the flying ship, it would have been impossible for Yang Yidao to catch up to him. However, it was a pity that Suyu had no time to activate the boat due to the intense battle. The speed of the fairy realm. What a shocking warship. Mr. Black Snow, your rewards this time around are really enviable. Long Wuxin did not hide her envy in the slightest. She heaved a sigh of relief. With such speed, it would be difficult for the person who was chasing them to catch up. "Miss Long, who is chasing you? How strong is he?" Suyu asked without turning his head. Long Wuxin's expression turned serious, and she was slightly angry. "It's a demonic cultivator. His abilities are extremely strong. I feel that he already has the abilities of the fairy realm. However, I do not know what secret technique he used to be able to exist in the mysterious heavenly divine pavilion. The abilities of the fairy realm?" Suyu's expression was grave. With Long Wuxin being the daughter of the Heavenly Law Alliance's master, she had seen many things. Her words were most likely not false. However, what made Suyu's heart heavy was that even with Yang Yidao's terrifying abilities, he did not have the right to say that he had the abilities of the fairy realm. At most, he was at the level of a half-fairy. Just who was the demonic cultivator who was chasing them? Qin Sienner also clenched her small fists angrily. "Umph! That bad guy is too much of a bully. I heard that he is a disciple from the outer sanctum of the soul-seizing palace. He chased me and Sister Wuxin for days and nights." A disciple from the outer sanctum of the soul-seizing palace? Suyu's heart sank. Not good. If he did not remember wrongly, Yuchan had once said that there were two groups of people from the soul-seizing palace who had entered the mysterious heavenly divine pavilion. One group was led by Shuel Ling, and he led a ship of people to fight them in the death grassland. As for the other group, there was only one person. That person was a disciple from the outer sanctum of the soul-seizing palace, who was ranked 10th. According to Yuchan, they would still have a chance to escape if they met Shuel Ling and his group. However, if they met that disciple from the outer sanctum, they would die. There was no doubt that Shuel Ling and his group were strong. Even Suyu had almost died at their hands. However, even someone as strong as him, along with 6 half-fairies and hundreds of human kings, could not compare to a single disciple from the outer sanctum. Suyu did not doubt that person's abilities were at the level of the fairy realm. What made Suyu even more uneasy was that if the blood essence of that disciple from the outer sanctum was within the warship, he would be able to control the warship and prevent Suyu and his group from escaping. At that moment, as if to verify Suyu's uneasiness, the warship suddenly shook violently, showing signs of losing control. It was the other person fighting with Suyu for control of the warship. Suyu's heart was in his throat. His expression turned grave, and he crazily imbued spirit energy into the warship. The warship's speed increased, and it gradually stabilized after escaping from the other person's control. However, in just a moment, the warship showed signs of instability again, and it was even more serious than before. Suyu was shocked, and he subconsciously turned his head to look. What made his heart jump was that a black-clothed figure had appeared in the sky. He could not see the person's face clearly, but he could actually catch up to a warship with the speed of the fairy realm. Suyu could not describe the shock in his heart. His eyes flashed, and he took out several frost moon dew pills, holding them in his palm. He raised his mouth and swallowed one. After obtaining a large amount of spirit energy, he crazily imbued it into the compass. With a buzz, the warship's speed increased again, leaving the other person behind. Half a day later, the warship showed signs of being controlled again. The other person, who had clearly been left behind, had caught up again. Suyu, who was lacking in spirit energy, had no choice but to swallow the frost moon dew pills again to replenish his spirit energy. This happened 3 times, for a total of 3 days and 3 nights. The other person was like a ghost, chasing relentlessly. The frost moon dew pills in Suyu's hands were completely used up. 10,000 miles away, the black-clothed figure, who had been left far behind, had a pale and angry expression. Darn it! Who is that? His spirit energy is so abundant. The black-clothed figure had short hair, and his eyes were as sharp as an eagle's. His whole body released an indescribably frightening aura. That phoenix of death constitution. Just as I was about to catch up, there was another nameless, strong martial artist. Moreover, why is the divine flying ship in his hands? Could it be that Shuel Ling and the rest of the trash have met with misfortune? Standing at his original position, he looked at the black jade bottle in his hands, which was now empty. His face glowed with ferocity and dissatisfaction. If not for the fact that I am afraid of the rules of the mysterious heavenly divine pavilion, which prevents me from revealing my cultivation base of the fairy realm, and I can only rely on elixirs to activate my movement techniques, do you think they can escape from my hands? This person was a real, strong martial artist of the fairy realm. He was a powerful martial artist of the same generation as the sloppy old man. Previously, he had been able to catch up to the speed of the fairy realm, while suppressing his cultivation base of the fairy realm. He had used the power of the elixir. The elixir must have been very precious, as this person only had 1 bottle. I do not believe that all of you can escape from my hands. His face glowed with dissatisfaction as he continued to chase after the divine flying ship. Looks like I have successfully shaken him off. Long Wuxin extended her arms, letting out a long sigh. Her face revealed a relaxed and joyful expression, which was rarely seen. However, when she spread her arms, her dress tightened, outlining her impressive figure, especially her full breasts, which seemed to be on the verge of bursting out. Suyu glanced at her subconsciously, feeling embarrassed. In his heart, he also let out a long sigh. Suyu did not have the slightest chance of winning against a strong martial artist of the fairy realm. Moreover, he was severely injured, and it was even more impossible for him to fight. Rushing for days had caused his injuries to relapse. Coupled with the lack of spirit energy, Suyu forcefully held on for half a day. Finally, his figure swayed and he fell to the ground. The divine flying ship landed in a swamp. After Suyu kept it, the 3 of them hurriedly went to a crack in a rock, taking the time to replenish their spirit energy and heal their injuries. Looking within himself, Suyu could not help but laugh bitterly. Even though his severed energy channels had been reconnected, it would still take a long time for them to recover completely. Moreover, the shattering of his bones would not heal in a short period of time, so you might not be able to use his martial arts for the next 1.5 months. Suddenly, a fragrance assaulted his senses. It was Long Wuxin approaching him. In her fair and delicate palm, there was an overflowing green elixir. It is very effective for internal injuries. It was made by Phoenix Master Chio, and it is not inferior to the flesh regeneration elixir. Long Wuxin's eyes were clear, smiling as she stuffed the elixir into Suyu's palm. At this moment, Suyu would not hesitate, gulping down the elixir. At once, waves of warm and comfortable energy came from within his body, nourishing his limbs and bones, as well as all the injuries in his body. His injuries were recovering at a speed visible to the naked eye. Even though it was not as strong as Yang Yidao's flesh regeneration elixir, it was definitely not an elixir that was difficult to find in the human world. Compared to the ancient elixir that Han Jianglin had, the flesh regeneration elixir, it was much stronger. Based on this speed, Suyu would be able to recover completely in 2 to 3 days. Suyu had a joyous expression. He knew that the elixir was precious, and it was most likely used to save his life. He was afraid that Long Wuxin did not have many of them. He could not help but feel grateful. "Thank you, Miss Long, for your elixir." Long Wuxin did not seem to mind. Her clear and cold face revealed a rare and kind smile. "You saved me, Anciener. What does a mere pill count for? Moreover, you and I are not strangers." Not strangers? If he did not remember wrongly, this was the first time he and Long Wuxin had spoken. How could they be familiar? But looking at Long Wuxin's face, Suyu faintly felt that she looked familiar. But after thinking about it, he could not remember. At this moment, Long Wuxin let out a faint smile. "Mr. Black Snow, have you forgotten about Exan Wuhan so quickly?" Exan Wuhan? Suyu shuddered, suddenly remembering the delicate lady who had entered the seabed with him to search for the undead herb of the netherworld. Their figures overlapped. Even though there were some differences in appearance, it was indeed Exan Wuhan. "It's you." Suyu was extremely surprised. The person who had entered the seabed with him was actually Long Wuxin. At that time, Suyu had not even made a breakthrough to Heaven Master. With that kind of ability, the difference between him and Long Wuxin's real body was more than 1,000 miles. Long Wuxin smiled. "You finally recognized me. Mr. Black Snow escaped quickly that day. My illusionary body did not have that kind of ability to escape from the Ghost King." Hearing this, Suyu's expression turned serious. He could not help but take out the transparent cloak, smiling embarrassedly. "That day, I was swallowed by the Ghost King and only managed to escape after a narrow escape. Miss Long, you are too kind. Since I have found my owner, I will return this cloak to its owner." The invisible cloak had helped Suyu greatly. Suyu was a little reluctant to return it just like that. "Take it, since you were able to snatch it back from the hands of the enemy. I am too ashamed to ask for it." Hearing this, Suyu cupped his fists in thanks. As the two of them were conversing, Suyu's expression turned grave. "Not good. He is caught up. We have clearly shaken him off by several million miles. How can he catch up?" Long Wuxin's expression was grave. "I do not know what kind of secret technique he used, but he seems to be able to sense our direction. Mr. Black Snow, thank you for your help along the way. Let's part ways here. He wants the two of us, and it has nothing to do with you. Leave quickly." Long Wuxin stood up, her expression stern. "Is that so?" Suyu revealed a thoughtful expression. After muttering to himself for a moment, he looked at Qin Xiener and said, "If you trust me, leave it to me." Chapter 482. Hearing this, Long Wuxin was slightly surprised. Could it be that Sir Black Snow has a treasure that can conceal our auras? If it is the cicada cloak, I might have to disappoint you. Its ability to conceal one's aura is not top-notch. It might be able to deal with a half-god, but against a demon faction disciple, it would be too much. The cicada cloak was a normal middle-grade divine artifact, and its effects were limited. Suyu shook his head. "If you trust me, relax your defenses, and I will bring you to a place. That place should be able to completely seal off your auras." His words caused Long Wuxin to sink into deep thought. Although she had been fleeing with Su Yu for 3 days and 3 nights, she had been secretly on guard at all times during those 3 days. If she gave up on resisting and Su Yu suddenly attacked them, they would not be able to react in time. At this moment, Qin Xian'er pulled on Su Yu's sleeves, raising her exquisite face and nodding her head seriously. "Brother Black Snow, I trust you." Saying this, she obediently closed her eyes, not resisting in the slightest. Seeing this, Long Wuxin sighed. Since things had come to this, she could only trust the Black Snow Devil King. From his attitude toward Qin Xian'er, she guessed that he would not harm them. After saying this, she slowly closed her eyes, extending her slender hand. "All right, that will do." So you had no time to think, keeping the 2 of them in the 9 jade spiritual pearl. When the 2 of them opened their eyes, they could not help but freeze. Qin Xian'er opened her beautiful eyes wide. "And where is this?" Long Wuxin was shocked at first, but after that, she surveyed her surroundings and could not help but be shocked. "Spatial treasure. You actually brought such a huge space treasure with you." Turning back to look at Su Yu, Long Wuxin was beyond shocked. Su Yu said, "I hope you can keep this a secret. If this item was leaked, it would be troublesome when he returned to the Jinlong continent." Even though the only people in the Jinlong continent that Su Yu was afraid of were the 3 fairy realm fighters, he was still worried. But in order to avoid trouble, he naturally had to tell her what he needed to tell her. Long Wuxin came back to her senses, her expression serious. "You don't have to worry about this. I, Long Wuxin, will not stoop to such petty tricks." Qin Xian'er wore a serious expression, nodding her head. "And I won't tell anyone, not even Brother Su Yu." Su Yu smiled. "This place is rich with spiritual energy. All of you can cultivate here from now on. I will let you out after we leave the mysterious heavenly divine pavilion." Long Wuxin's face lit up with joy. "I couldn't have asked for more. If this place is a spatial magic treasure, it will be able to isolate us from the outside world. It will also be a good place for us to rest and adjust ourselves." The most important thing was to digest the inheritance they had obtained from the ruins of the immortal king. As such, Su Yu's soul left the 9 jade spiritual pearl and returned to his body. Without hesitation, Su Yu weaved signs with one hand and activated the cicada cloak. He concealed himself within it and immediately flew away. After the time it took to brew a cup of tea, a figure of light descended upon this place. It was the soul-seizing palace's outer sanctum disciple who had chased after them. A look of surprise appeared on his face. A pitch-black mouse was anxiously pacing around in his palm. "Impossible! How did they do it?" As long as the phoenix of death body was still in the mysterious heavenly divine pavilion, the demon spirit rat would be able to sense it easily. Even if it was just a corpse, it would still be able to sense it. Could it be that they used some kind of secret technique to leave the mysterious heavenly divine pavilion in advance? He furrowed his brows, feeling both angry and frustrated. If not for that mysterious person, the phoenix of death body would have fallen into my hands. How despicable! Looking at his surroundings, he confirmed that he had lost the phoenix of death body. He could only give up in spite of his anger. "Forget it. I have already wasted too much time on this phoenix of death body. If I were any later, the mysterious heavenly palace would not be able to make it in time. That place is the true inheritance of the mysterious heavenly divine pavilion." After saying this, he headed in the direction of the stone forest. After Su Yu left the swamp, he hurriedly hid in a desolate forest. He found a secret place. After making sure that the demon faction disciple had not chased after him, Su Yu took out a black ring. The surface of the ring was like a black gemstone, giving off a black, shiny luster. This item had the same effect as the Cosmos Mirror. It was a rare storage artifact. With a thought, Su Yu easily sent his soul into the ring. A space that was 10 feet in length, width, and height appeared before his eyes. Compared to the Cosmos Mirror, this storage artifact was more than 10 times bigger. Moreover, this storage artifact did not seem to need to be refined, so you could easily use it after obtaining it. Carefully checking the items within, There were all sorts of divine herbs and unknown materials. There were also several immortal-level techniques, 2 middle-grade divine artifacts, and many different types of elixirs. Suyu swept his gaze past all of these, his gaze fixed on the remaining 4 orbs. Adding on the purple orb that he had already obtained, the entire dry cloud 5 elemental formation was in his hands. Suyu had long seen the frightening defensive abilities of this item and had coveted it. Now, it had finally fallen into his hands. Sensing it, Suyu realized that there was a very powerful seal within it. It was not an ordinary seal refined by blood. Suyu's gaze flickered, and he used his soul eyes to look inside. He saw that within each orb there was a rune. Those runes were formed by souls. Ordinary cleansing techniques would not be able to wash away the soul imprints. This caused Suyu to feel a little dispirited. From the looks of it, only by gathering 5 people would they be able to fully activate this formation. To Suyu, who was used to traveling alone, this item was useless. Thinking for a moment, Suyu temporarily kept the formation, flipping through the 9 books left behind by the Thunder Emperor in his mind. He had been in a rush previously, but now he finally had the time to digest them. A day later, Suyu opened his eyes, his gaze filled with fatigue. After several days of reading, he had read all 9 books once, memorizing the parts regarding lightning-based materials. The first to third books were the Thunder Emperor's understanding and analysis of lightning-based techniques. To a self-taught person like Suyu, they were treasures. Suyu was intoxicated by them. The 4th to 7th books were lightning-based techniques that the Thunder Emperor had cultivated. Suyu put this part aside for now. The 8th book was an explanation of lightning-based materials, covering the entire Jujo world. The 9th book was an introduction to the 5 elemental strong thunder seal. From this, Suyu finally understood how precious the 5 elemental strong thunder seal was. Each of the main materials used to craft, it could be crafted into a top-grade spiritual artifact, comparable to the Eternal Stone King armor. Each of the materials had been obtained by the Thunder Emperor in a life-and-death battle with various divine masters. For this, he had paid a painful price of severe injuries. In the end, he had only managed to fuse a few lightning-based materials to craft a prototype before he passed away. Understanding this, Suyu was shocked beyond words. He was filled with anticipation for the subsequent refinement of the prototype fairy artifact. According to the 9 books, there were 3 steps for a prototype fairy artifact to become a final fairy artifact. The second step was to refine and completely refine the lightning-based materials within the 5 elemental strong thunder seal, turning it into a semi-manufactured fairy artifact. However, one needed a special flame called the Wave's Divine Flame in order to successfully refine this item. This flame was extremely rare in the Jujo continent. Only divine masters and above possessed such a flame. One could imagine how difficult it would be to obtain such a flame. If a prototype fairy artifact had such power, how powerful would it be if it could be refined into a semi-manufactured fairy artifact? No matter what, if there was a chance, he had to find the Wave's divine fire. After understanding this, Suyu could finally flip through the magical powers that the Thunder Emperor had cultivated. The Thunder Emperor had focused his entire life on lightning-based techniques. Each of his magical powers was extraordinary. Unfortunately, after reading 3 books consecutively, Suyu did not find a suitable one for him to cultivate. Most of the Thunder Emperor's magical powers had a basic requirement. He had to be at the Divine Master level. At the very least, he had to be at the later stage of the fairy realm. Only then could he withstand the overbearing, lightning magical powers. This made Suyu extremely depressed. Even the Thunder Emperor had not expected his legacy to be obtained by a young lad who had not even reached the fairy realm. However, just as Suyu was feeling disappointed, he suddenly saw a technique in the last book. Great Thunder Heart Technique. This technique was unexpected. It was actually a secret soul technique. After successfully cultivating it, one could plant a lightning seal in the soul of an enemy whose soul was not as strong as one's own. If the enemy did not obey, no matter how far away they were, one could detonate the lightning seal with a thought, instantly killing the enemy. This method caused Su Yu to feel a rush of excitement. This was a technique that the Thunder Emperor had used when he was young. He had used it to enslave many people of the same cultivation level. The effects were obvious. The cultivation requirements were not high. First, one had to be proficient in lightning-based techniques. At the very least, one had to be able to form the Thunderbolt origin. Next, one's soul had to be strong enough. This technique relied on the soul. If one's soul was not strong enough, one would be injured by the lightning. Hearing this, Su Yu was secretly delighted. This technique was tailor-made for him. In terms of soul power, Su Yu could match that of Fairy Realm. Moreover, he had successfully formed the Thunderbolt origin not long ago. Suppressing his excitement, Su Yu read on patiently and seriously. When he saw the last magical power, he once again revealed a joyous expression. Lightning Escape, a secret movement technique that allowed one to transform into lightning and travel 100,000 miles in an instant. If one expended a large amount of lightning energy in a short period of time, one could travel 100,000 miles in an instant. This was a divine ability to escape. The requirements for this technique were also relatively simple. Anyone who cultivated lightning-based techniques could use it. However, after carefully reading it, Su Yu realized that if he were to use this secret thunder technique, the lightning energy stored in Su Yu's body would only be enough to use it once. As for traveling 100,000 miles in an instant, that was even more impossible. The Thunder Emperor's magical powers are really not that easy to cultivate. Su Yu clicked his tongue. However, he still started to cultivate the two magical powers excitedly, especially the Great Thunderheart technique. Su Yu's eyes were filled with anticipation. In the past few days, Su Yu had been focusing on his cultivation. The 7th level of the Divine Pavilion was also crowded with people. Large groups of people had left the various historical remains and gathered in the direction of the Stone Forest. Chapter 483. However, the situation of the battle was too intense, and there were more and more strong martial artists joining in. Even they were unable to control the final outcome of the battle. In the corpse grassland, the hole that had appeared on the body of the giant monster that had been silent for a long time had been repaired. Within the corpse, the blood-colored ball that had swallowed Shuel Ling was expanding and contracting rapidly, as though it was a heart. Suddenly, the heart flickered, and the inside of the body started to shake violently. Looking from the outside, a snake-shaped giant monster suddenly crawled out from the ground on the boundless green grassland. Its entire body was silvery white, as though it was made of metal. It was 10,000 feet long, and its body was 1,000 feet thick. Tens of thousands of red tentacles shot out from the surface of his silvery white body and shot out in all directions. 100,000 miles away, a group of soul-seizing palaces cultivators scattered on the grassland had just escaped from the corpse grassland. When they passed by an ancient tree, densely packed blood-red threads suddenly shot out from the tree. As these threads swept past, a group of Human King's strong martial artists were sliced into mincemeat on the spot, and they were all swallowed by the blood-red tentacles. 100,000 miles away, in a certain historical site, a group of 9 people were digging out a divine herb excitedly. All 9 of them were half-god strong martial artists. Senior Gong, after spending half a month, we will be able to break the seal. This divine herb will definitely be ours. An 18-year-old young lady looked at the green-robed man, who had lowered his head and was digging out the divine herb, in admiration. The surrounding half-god strong martial artists were also respectful. Senior Gong smiled humbly. Junior sister and everyone else also contributed to this. The young lady shook her head shyly. No, it was Senior Gong who broke the seal by himself. We did not do anything. Senior Gong is indeed the 10th genius among the outer sanctum disciples of the Bright Moon Academy. If you were not around, we might have been wiped out when we encountered Shuel Ling's troop from the Soul-Seizing Palace, let alone reaching the historical site. Hearing this, the group of people revealed a look of lingering fear. They had just entered the 7th level of the Divine Pavilion, and they had encountered an entire battleship of people from the Soul-Seizing Palace. Fortunately, Senior Gong was able to defeat Shuel Ling alone, and they ended up in a tie. Otherwise, the consequences would have been disastrous. Senior Gong shook his head slightly and smiled. The scariest person from the soul-seizing palace is Cho Ziming. Although Shuel Ling is strong, he might not be able to do anything to us. Everyone, don't worry. The possibility of us meeting them again is almost zero. Senior Gong was a strong martial artist from the faction who could rival Shuel Ling. He was also one of the leaders from the Bright Moon Academy, who had entered the mysterious Heavenly Divine Pavilion. At this moment, the immortal herb was successfully dug up. However, what made Senior Brother Gong frown was that there was a thin, blood-red thread wrapped around the root of the immortal herb. Before he could figure out what it was, the blood thread suddenly turned into an afterimage and disappeared. Immediately after, screams of terror could be heard from the surroundings. Senior Brother Gong felt a chill between his eyebrows. His consciousness dissipated and he fell to the ground. Blood. Everyone could. And he was, and he all, he his body was, and that his, he is, and his body was, and his was, and his body was. Horrible shrieks could be heard, but they stopped after a while. When the blood returned to the ground, apart from the smell of blood that lingered in the air, there was nothing strange. No one knew that the whole team of people from the Bright Moon Academy had been killed. A similar scene played out in the whole 7th level of the Divine Pavilion. Batch after batch of talented martial artists were devoured. Not only them, but the demonic beasts in the Divine Pavilion were not spared. A large group of demonic beasts escaped toward the depths of the 7th level of the Divine Pavilion. Thunder Emperor Mountain. 2 half-god martial artists stood in front of the ruined Thunder Emperor Mountain. We are too late. The Great Thunder Hall has been broken through. The person in the lead was a beautiful woman in her 20s. Her eyebrows were like a painting, and on her jade-like face was a pair of beautiful eyes that were as clear as the moon. They gave off a dreamy luster and were as beautiful as gems. Her skin was white, like the snow on the plateau. Her complexion was rosy, like the sun reflecting the snow, gorgeous and beautiful. The figure on the other side was well-proportioned and slender, curvaceous in all the right places, as if it was artificially sculpted. Her expression was indifferent, without joy or sorrow, yet she gave others a strange feeling of holiness. She was like a lotus that had just emerged from the water and couldn't be defiled. Martial Uncle Liu, who was it that broke through the Great Thunder Hall, and even destroyed the Thunder Emperor Mountain to such a state? Could it be Cho Ziming from the Soul-Seizing Palace? The one who spoke was a slightly younger youth. He asked cautiously with a respectful expression on his face. The youngster's cultivation base vaguely emanated a level that was no weaker than Sanguis's. It was exceptionally shocking. However, the woman in front of him, who was nearly 20 years old, was his martial aunt. At this moment, the young man was secretly sizing up the woman's graceful body, and he secretly revealed a look of reverence and admiration. The woman with the surname Liu exhaled and shook her head slightly. No, there were no traces of demonic qi, and Cho Ziming did not have such powerful abilities. If I'm not wrong, one of the targets of Yang Yidao and the others from the returning Principal Palace seems to be the Thunder Emperor Mountain. After we return, inform the returning Principal Palace and ask Yang Yidao to come to the Moonlight Clear Voyage to explain the situation. This woman's tone was abnormally arrogant. She directly ordered the people of the returning Principal Palace to come and see her. Yes, Martial Aunt. The youngster was abnormally respectful, and he did not dare to disobey her in the slightest. The woman with the surname Liu raised her moon-like snow-white eyes and looked at the 10 miles of flat land. She pondered for a moment. The fusion of 3 types of origins. He is really reckless. After her speech, she swept her gaze in the direction of the stone forest. Why is A.O. you not here yet? Hearing this, the youngster replied respectfully, reporting to Martial Aunt, Junior sister A.O., you should still be on her way. There are not many teleportation formations in the 6th level of the Divine Pavilion. I think that the place where Junior sister is at does not have a teleportation formation. Hence, she took a detour to look for her. The woman with the surname Lu frowned slightly. "All right, for the next few days, you and I will rest here temporarily. You should go and check the situation in the surroundings. Do not let anyone disturb you." "Yes, Marshal Ant." The youngster immediately bowed and left. He searched the collapsed Thunder Emperor Mountain strictly, in case there was anyone in the vicinity who would disturb Marshal Ant. Suddenly, the youngster realized that there was a faint redness on a broken big rock in the Thunder Emperor Mountain. It was as if something was growing out of the mountain rock. With a shocked expression, the youngster was about to lower his head to check. However, at that moment, tins of fine red lines suddenly shot out and swept across the area. The youngster's expression changed in shock, and he could only retreat continuously. However, the speed of the blood-colored red lines was extremely fast. They caught up with him easily and pierced through his body. The youngster let out a horrible shriek and was instantly pierced through. Sensing that the flesh and blood essence in his body were being drained away crazily, the youngster was extremely shocked. Just as he sensed that an ice-cold death was about to befall him, a beam of divine light suddenly slashed across and sliced the tins of blood threads on the spot. At the same time, with a flash of light, the youngster flew 10,000 Chinese feet into the air. Beside him, the woman with the surname Lu frowned slightly and lowered her head to size up the Thunder Emperor mountain below her. With a flicker of light in her eyes, the woman with the surname Lu casually pointed at the Thunder Emperor mountain. Instantly, with a roar, the Thunder Emperor mountain, which had existed for an unknown number of years, completely turned into granular dust. After that, the woman with the surname Lu waved her wide sleeves gently, and the granules scattered, revealing a mass of densely packed blood-red lines. They extended out from the ground, passed through the dust, and chased after the two of them. The green-clothed woman extended a finger casually, and the mass of blood-colored lines exploded on the spot, turning into a pungent, bloody smell. The youngster had managed to escape with his life, but his body was still in extreme pain. He could not help but say in shock, "Uncle, what is this thing?" The green-clothed woman looked in the direction of the corpse grassland, deep in thought. It should be the birth of some evil creature that was in deep slumber. Moreover, it is extremely powerful. My abilities are suppressed, and I am not its match. Let's go to the stone forest first. If Aoyue is still alive, she will know where to go. Suyu had trained for 3 days and 3 nights and had finally mastered the lightning escape and the Great Thunderheart technique. In addition to the magical powers, there was the cultivation experience of the Thunder Emperor. Hence, Suyu only needed to comprehend it slightly to be able to successfully cultivate it. Although he was delighted, Suyu did not leave. Instead, he took out the dry cloud 5 elemental formation once again. 5 round balls floated in front of Suyu. With a flash of his eyes, a black crack appeared between Suyu's brows abruptly. A thumb-sized amulet, formed by lightning, floated out. With a leisurely sound, the amulet shot into the purple round ball. There was a soul seal within, firmly controlling the dry cloud 5 elemental formation. The Thunderbolt amulet that Suyu had formed contained both soul energy and thunderbolt energy. It pierced into the soul seal. The soul seal was extremely intelligent, resisting the entry of the Thunderbolt amulet. Unfortunately, there was no master in this place. Hence, it was powerless against the attack of a secret technique. With a creak, the Thunderbolt amulet successfully pierced into the seal, following which, Suyu's heart moved. The Thunderbolt within the amulet exploded. After the Thunderbolt energy fused with the soul, it could inflict damage at the soul level. The soul seal was destroyed on the spot. Suyu was ecstatic. The Great Thunderheart technique was indeed effective. After destroying the seal in one of the round balls, Suyu followed the same pattern and quickly destroyed the remaining 4 round balls as well. An hour later, the dry cloud 5 elemental formation seals were all destroyed. In the Jiuzhou continent, a furious roar could be heard from a faction shrouded in celestial clouds. The powerful aura of a god lord rumbled out, intimidating everyone around it. In the mysterious heavenly divine pavilion, Suyu was ecstatic. He took out 5 drops of blood and refined the 5 round balls at the same time. After a moment, an unfamiliar message appeared in his mind. Dry Cloud 5 Elemental Formation, a semi-manufactured spiritual artifact. When activated at the same time, its power is no weaker than a spiritual artifact. Suyu was overjoyed. Every round ball was a semi-manufactured spiritual artifact. If 5 of them formed a set, it would be equivalent to a spiritual artifact. Just like the 9 yin-yang formation, each ball was a middle-grade divine artifact. However, if they formed a set, they could unleash the power of a high-grade divine artifact. It can be used for defense, as well as to trap powerful enemies. Suyu had seen its defense before. It could even defend against a later-stage fairy. As for trapping enemies, Suyu was filled with anticipation. As the master, he could control the 5 round balls at the same time, forming the Dry Cloud 5 Elemental Formation. With this formation, Suyu would not need to flee if he met the demonic faction disciple again. At that moment, his injuries had healed. Suyu got up and left the secret place. He flew up into the sky and surveyed his surroundings. He only had one mission left in the mysterious heavenly divine pavilion, and that was to find the lightning avoiding silver pearl and the blood of a real dragon. However, the 7th level of the divine pavilion was vast. Suyu felt lost as he looked around. At that moment, the sound of something breaking through the air could be heard from afar. Suyu looked up and saw an 18-year-old girl with a deathly pale face. She was running for her life with a face full of fear. Her figure was slender, and her looks were extraordinary. Her entire body released a mature and alluring aura. Her flawless white face was also very beautiful. Under her arched eyebrows was a pair of phoenix eyes that could release cold intent at any time. The tip of her nose was high, and her chin was slightly pointed. Her red lips were like dots, and her pearly white teeth were like silver. She was indeed a cold and elegant woman. She was different from Long Wuxin. Long Wuxin was invincible among her peers. She was arrogant and did not like to talk to others when she was quiet. The lady in front of Suyu was cold. She had a ruthless aura. The lady suddenly felt the presence of someone in front of her. Her phoenix eyes were stunned. It was obvious that she did not expect to meet a human in such a desolate place. Suyu looked carefully. He saw that there was a group of demonic beasts behind the lady. No, it was not a group. It was a beast tide that covered 10,000 miles. The sky and the ground were filled with a crazed beast tide. The space behind the lady was filled with darkness. It was filled with countless demonic beasts. She was just walking in front of the beast tide. Once she stopped, she would be engulfed by the beast tide. Suyu was shocked. What had happened? Why was there a beast tide? And it was such a frightening beast tide. But without hesitation, Suyu took out the divine flying ship, fed it with spirit energy, and escaped. If he were to fall into such a beast tide, there was no way he could survive. The cold lady was stunned when she saw the warship. She then exclaimed, "The divine flying ship of the demonic path." Her phoenix eyes flashed with surprise. She flew towards Suyu hurriedly, shouting, "Please wait. Bring me along. I will give you a divine artifact." Divine artifact? Unless it was a high-grade divine artifact, Suyu would not be interested in a normal divine artifact. He ignored her, controlling the divine flying ship to fly faster. The lady was anxious. She clenched her teeth, saying, "Friend, I know the whereabouts of a spiritual artifact. If you can save me, I will tell you the truth." Spiritual artifact? Suyu had a thought. He looked the lady up and down, nodding his head. "All right, come up." After a short pause, the lady flew up the divine ship. The divine flying ship turned into a fragmentary shadow, quickly disappearing into the horizon. After a day, Suyu could no longer feel the aura of the beast tide. He then felt at ease. "Miss, why did you encounter the beast tide?" Suyu could not help but ask. The cold lady was surprised. Suyu did not ask about the clues of the spiritual artifact first. The temptation of a spiritual artifact to a normal person was unimaginable. Yet, this person could remain calm. "I do not know. I was picking a divine herb, but the beast tide suddenly arrived. I fell into it and was on the run until I met you." Chapter 484. They had stopped at a lush mountain range, but Suyu could not sense any signs of life with his soul eyes. It was as if all living creatures had disappeared without a trace. All that was left was messy marks on the ground. Could a beast tide have occurred here, causing all the demonic beasts to flee? What had happened during the few days he had been training in seclusion? As he pondered, a sweet fragrance came from the mountain range below. Taking a light breath, Suyu felt extremely comfortable. The damaged spirit energy crystal in his dantian was showing signs of recovery. His internal injuries had basically healed, but the crystal in his dantian had been damaged beyond repair. The elegant woman also smelled the fragrance, and a trace of joy flashed in her eyes. However, deep in her eyes, it was unknown what she was thinking, as if she was deep in thought. "It is the incredible feather spiritual pomegranate," the cold lady said coldly. "It is extremely beneficial for purifying spirit energy. This item is not commonly seen in the Johto continent, and it requires a huge price to exchange for it." Purify spirit energy? Suyu was tempted. It was recorded in the Thunder Emperor's 9 books that when breaking through to the fairy realm, the purer the spirit energy in one's body was, the greater one's potential would be. Purifying spirit energy was for the future. True geniuses would intentionally suppress their breakthrough to purify their spirit energy. That way, their chances of breaking through to the Divine Master Realm would be higher. Furthermore, the purified spirit energy of the fairy realm would be purer and larger than that of a normal fairy realm. It would give them a huge advantage in battle. This item was considered a rare and precious item in the Johto continent, and one might need to pay a high-grade divine artifact to obtain it. There was actually a wild, incredible feather spiritual pomegranate. I don't want the clue to the spirit artifact, but this item belongs to me. How about that? Suyu said quickly after weighing the pros and cons. Actually, he did not believe that this lady would easily reveal the clue to the spirit artifact. Even if she was willing to reveal it, there must be a reason behind it. Hence, he might as well settle for the next best thing, the spirit fruit. The cold lady's expression was normal. Up to you. This item has no effect after being used once. In other words, she had already used the incredible feather spiritual pomegranate to purify spirit energy. Suyu nodded, raising his hand to keep the divine flying ship. He then followed the fragrance and entered the mountain range. After a short while, Suyu followed the scent and found a small lake with rippling blue waves. The clear lake reflected the blue sky and white clouds like a mirror. In the middle of the lake, there was a small snow-white tree that exuded a pure and holy aura. Its leaves were like pure white feathers, gently stretching out. On the small tree, there was a golden fruit that emitted an alluring fragrance. It was the profound feather pomegranate. This item was quite useful in purifying one's strength, and it could be considered a rare treasure. Delighted, Suyu flew toward it, and a jade shovel appeared in his palm. He spun it in the air, scooped out the golden incredible feather spiritual pomegranate, and sealed it in a jade box. However, out of the corner of his eye, Suyu noticed that there seemed to be blood-red threads twining around the snow-white small tree. Feeling that it was strange, Suyu used his soul eyes to see through it. With one look, his expression changed. That blood-colored thread wasn't something that grew on the snow-white little tree. Instead, it came from the depths of the ground, following the roots and extending into the interior of the tree. Lowering his head, he saw that the blood threads were not limited to the small tree. The entire land was intersected with each other, forming a network of blood-colored threads that were hidden under the ground. The tens of thousands of blood threads, the densely packed network, and the terrifying number of them caused Suyu's scalp to go numb. He swept his gaze in other directions. What made his skin crawl was that wherever his gaze passed, the ground was covered by the blood-colored threads. It was as if they were on a giant blood net that covered the sky and the sun. At that moment, the blood-red threads within the snow-white small tree suddenly shot out. At such a close distance, there was almost no time for anyone to react. Even Suyu himself was taken aback. However, he had been in battle for a long time, and his reactions were extremely fast. Even though he did not have the time to use his cultivation techniques or take out his treasures, his body contained the existence of a thunderbolt that could restrain the evil, and it contained the disastrous thunder. In the blink of an eye, the surface of Su Yu's body was suddenly covered by a layer of dense, disastrous thunder, covering his entire body. With a puffing sound, a pungent smell could be heard. After the blood-colored threads had struck Su Yu's body, they were turned into ashes by the disastrous thunder. Having narrowly avoided such an attack, Su Yu hesitated no longer, turning his body to charge into the sky. But suddenly, a cold feeling came from behind, and an invisible sense of danger suddenly descended. Su Yu's heart changed slightly. Without thinking, a round pearl appeared out of thin air, shielding his back. Clang, clang. The sound of metal clashing suddenly entered Su Yu's ears. The round pearl he had summoned suffered a huge force and was sent flying 1,000 feet away. After blocking this fatal blow, Su Yu finally had the time to turn his head to take a look. A cold and elegant woman with an impressive figure was holding a sharp awl in her hand, looking at the round pearl that had been sent flying with surprise. The person who had launched a sneak attack was the cold and elegant woman that Su Yu had saved. Killing me to steal my treasure? Su Yu's face was gradually covered in frost. Regaining her senses, the cold and elegant woman coldly scolded. Who cares about your treasures? What I want is your life. Su Yu raised his hand, and the round pearl flew above his head. His tone gradually became cold. Oh, my life? What have I offended you? On the contrary, if I remember correctly, I even saved you from the beast tide not long ago. The cold and elegant woman let out a cold laugh. Hee hee, you do not know me, but I know you. Eh? Su Yu's heart thumped. She knew him? This woman was not from the Jinlong continent. Could he have accidentally seen her in the mysterious, heavenly divine pavilion? I am Wu Aoyue of the moon-glowing clear ship. As a demonic cultivator, you should understand why I want your life, right? Sir Xueling. Wu Aoyue's phoenix eyes were filled with coldness. As a member of the moon-glowing clear ship's list of demonic cultivators, Xueling, you should have realized this when you raped and killed a female disciple of the moon-glowing clear ship. Xueling? Wait a minute. Su Yu was stunned. This Wu Aoyue had obviously mistaken him for someone else. Miss, before you attack, can I trouble you to clarify the other party's identity? The situation at hand was strange, and Su Yu had no time to waste on this woman. Unexpectedly, Wu Aoyue let out a cold laugh. Ha, my ass. Isn't Xueling wild, overbearing, and unscrupulous? Now, you do not even dare to admit your identity. How laughable. You do not need to quibble. You have naturally red hair like fresh blood, and you control the divine flying ship. If you're not Xueling, who is? Blood-colored hair. Su Yu was speechless. Speaking of which, Xueling did indeed have blood-colored hair. But who could have expected that he would be misunderstood? I really am not, Su Yu said helplessly. I am just a wandering martial artist. Hearing this, Wu Aoyue's eyes were filled with disdain. Don't tell me that a mere wandering martial artist could snatch the divine flying ship from Xueling's hands. Forget it. Why am I wasting my breath on you? Even though you, Xueling, have the physical body of the fairy realm, I, Aoyue, can easily kill you. Wu Aoyue said coldly and arrogantly, clearly confident in her strange phenomenon. As she spoke, she had already attacked. The sharp awl in her palm rotated once again. A pitch-black glow floated continuously in the middle of the sharp awl. Seeing the black glow, Su Yu became cautious at once. A high-grade divine artifact. That black glow was not a normal phenomenon of a magical treasure. Instead, it was because the grade of the divine artifact was extremely high, causing cracks to appear in the space. The black glow was a sign that the space was being pulled apart. If Su Yu was not careful with this attack, he might lose his life there. The speed of the sharp awl was extremely fast, tearing apart the space. In the blink of an eye, it was only one zhang away from Su Yu. Under such circumstances, he could not even defend himself. At the critical moment, Su Yu's body flashed with lightning. A layer of lightning that looked like ripples on water enveloped his body. Pooh! The sharp awl rotated and pierced through Su Yu's body. The powerful rotational force tore his body apart, turning it into scattered lightning arcs. But Wu Aoyue let out a gasp of surprise. A lightning-based escape technique? To think that Xue Ling, a demonic martial artist, would be proficient in lightning, a technique that counters demonic techniques. What a surprise. Creak. 100 zhang away, a bolt of lightning flickered. Su Yu's figure appeared from the center of the lightning, his expression ice-cold. He had tried to explain himself, but Wu Aoyue's stubbornness was because she felt that she could easily kill him. Hence, she would rather kill the wrong person than let him go. If it was another strong martial artist who was not weaker than Xue Ling, would she dare to attack so recklessly? Keeping his last bit of intention to clarify, Su Yu's gaze gradually turned cold. Fine, since that is the case, don't blame me for being ruthless. Coincidentally, my abilities have improved recently. I can use you as an example. Creak. 5 balls flew out at once, surrounding Su Yu's body. With a thought, the dry cloud, 5 elemental formation was unleashed. Seeing the 5 balls of different colors, Wu Aoyue creased her brows. She seemed to have heard of these 5 balls somewhere before, but she could not recall where. Humph, insignificant tricks. Take my attack first. Wu Aoyue could not be bothered to think. She raised her hand and pointed. The sharp awl in her palm rotated, breaking through the energy wave and piercing toward Su Yu. Su Yu had a playful expression. Insignificant tricks? That might not be the case. Activate the formation. With a grunt from Su Yu, the 5 balls rotated and flew into the sky, enveloping Wu Aoyue. A 5-colored light pillar descended from the sky, sealing her within like a cage. Wu Aoyue was stunned. The sharp awl that was attacking Su Yu immediately attacked the 5-colored light pillar. Break! But the high-grade divine artifact's sharp awl only left a thumb-sized ripple when it struck the 5-colored light pillar. It was then rebounded. Wu Aoyue's expression changed. How is this possible? Unless it was a true fairy realm martial artist, who would dare to underestimate the attack of a high-grade divine artifact, but had been blocked so easily. Trap! So you let out a grunt once again. At once, the 5-colored light pillar gradually shrunk. Wu Aoyue finally felt a trace of panic in her heart. Suddenly, an extremely famous treasure resounded in her mind. Chapter 485. In her memory, this treasure seemed to be controlled by a divine master from the returning principal palace. For Xue Ling to be able to control this formation meant that he had already refined the formation. Su Yu had an indifferent expression. You do not need to know that. After saying this, Su Yu rotated his fingers, lightly shouting, Gee. The 5-colored light beam tightened once again, sealing Wu Aoyue's entire body within it. She could not move. Even though she struggled, she could not move the light beam at all. Finally, the 5 orbs closed, the 5-colored light beam, binding her to the point where she could not move an inch. She could only open her mouth to speak. How dare you steal the treasure of a returning principal palace elder? Even the soul-seizing palace cannot protect you. Wu Aoyue was afraid, but she spoke in a threatening manner. The soul-seizing palace and the returning principal palace were both in the 18 blessed and heavenly lands. Their abilities were about the same, and there were many conflicts between them. In a fight between disciples, the elders of both sides would not interfere due to their status and reputation. But how could the other party let the matter rest after stealing the treasure of a divine master elder go? You can come and settle the score with me anytime. Su Yu shrugged nonchalantly. A slit appeared between his brows, and a small symbol formed by the fusion of his soul and thunderbolt flew out. It was the Great Thunderheart technique. Wu Aoyue was shocked. What are you doing? Didn't I already say that I will use you to test out the secret technique that I have successfully cultivated? Su Yu said calmly, If you do not wish to die, give up on resisting. This is your only chance of survival. Wu Aoyue, who was being controlled by Su Yu, instantly understood Su Yu's intentions. She could not help but be furious. You want to enslave me? She, who was as pure as ice and as clean as jade, was enslaved by the evil Xueling. You had better consider this carefully. I am here with Master Lu Chui. If you enslave me, she will not let you off. No matter how strong the soul-seizing palace is, how can you raise your head in front of the Purple Cloud Palace? Purple Cloud Palace, Lu Chui? Su Yu, who was ignorant of the Jojo continent, naturally could not understand what they meant. So what? When you tried to kill me, you did not consider it. Even when I repeatedly told you that I am not Xueling, you still tried to kill me. I really cannot find a reason to let you go. Su Yu's eyes were cold, and he was unmoved. Regardless of who Lu Chui was, since she was in mysterious heavenly divine pavilion, her abilities would definitely not exceed the fairy realm. Hence, Su Yu did not need to be too afraid of her. Wu Aoyue's heart skipped a beat. Sanguis didn't hold back at all? Wait a minute. At this moment, Wu Aoyue finally noticed that something was wrong. She asked suspiciously, "Are you really not Sanguis?" If he was Sanguis, how could he not understand the stakes? Su Yu turned a deaf ear to him and pointed his finger at the space between his brows. A layer of frost appeared on his face. I'll say it for the last time. Die, or give up resisting. Wait, if you aren't Sanguis, I think it was just a misunderstanding, Wu Aoyue hastily said. Su Yu laughed mockingly. Forget it. When I explained that it was not Xueling, did you really not suspect anything? One is only a human king, and the other is only a demigod. No matter how you look at it, there are many suspicious points. Yet, you would rather kill the wrong person than let me go. It is because you are confident that you can kill me easily. This is not a misunderstanding. He weaved signs with one hand, and a shining golden dagger appeared in his palm. He placed it on her neck and was about to spin it and cut off her head. Seeing Su Yu mercilessly kill her, Wu Aoyue's expression changed. No, I will give up resisting. Hearing this, Su Yu moved his finger. The symbol, which was a combination of soul and thunderbolt, entered the space between Wu Aoyue's brows and was embedded deeply into her soul. Only then did Su Yu put away the golden scale dagger. However, he only loosened the seal a little and did not release her immediately. Kill yourself. Su Yu's eyes were filled with a cold glow. What? Wu Aoyue opened her phoenix eyes wide and stared at Su Yu without blinking. Her pupils gradually shrank, revealing the panic in her heart and a shred of hope that she would be lucky. Su Yu coldly said, I do not like to repeat the same words twice. Wu Aoyue clenched her teeth. She knew that Su Yu was testing her to see if the seal was effective. If she resisted, it would mean that the seal was ineffective. Su Yu would definitely kill her and wipe her off the face of the earth. But if she did not resist, Su Yu would coldly watch her kill herself. Although there was a high possibility that Su Yu would stop her at the last moment, it was hard to say that he was not looking for someone to test the seal on. If she did not act, she would be forced to kill herself. No matter what, her life and death were in the hands of someone else. With a deep hesitation, Wu Aoyue clenched her teeth and slammed her palm toward the top of her head. Her palm did not hold back. If it hit her, her head would definitely explode and she would die. There was no doubt about it. Her eyes stared at Su Yu, not letting go of even a hint of his expression. But when her palm was about to land on the top of her head, Su Yu still did not move. His expression did not change, and he did not have any intention of ordering her to stop. Wu Aoyue's heart thumped and her mood sank. Su Yu wanted to kill her. Whoosh! At the critical moment, Wu Aoyue's palm came to a stop. It was less than half an inch away from the top of her head. You want to kill me? Wu Aoyue was furious. I have already explained it clearly. It was only a misunderstanding between us. Why must you kill me? What made her stunned was that Su Yu muttered to himself, the effect is not bad. There should be a restraining effect. Why must you kill me? Wu Aoyue glared at him. Su Yu ignored her and continued muttering to himself, as expected of a technique left behind by a divine master. A formless soul fused with a physical thunderbolt to form a restriction. It is complicated. Without a technique to refer to, it will be difficult for others to understand it. Why? Wu Aoyue's face was red as she glared at him. Suyu seemed to have just regained his senses and said blankly, "Why? You seem to want to say something just now." His words caused Wu Aoyue to explode in anger. She said word by word, "I am asking you, why did you not shout for me to stop?" Suyu blinked his eyes and had a confused expression. "Oh, didn't you stop by yourself?" Hearing this, Wu Aoyue clenched her teeth. Her eyes were almost spitting fire. Such an irresponsible reply made her go crazy. After a while, Wu Aoyue regained her composure. She quickly got used to her current situation and had a calm expression. "How should I address you, master?" "Master?" Suyu rubbed his chin and thought for a moment. He then waved his hands and said, "You can call me Mister. Master is too eye-catching and draws attention." It was not difficult to imagine the situation of a weak youth with a beautiful servant in the mysterious heavenly divine pavilion, where geniuses gathered and experts gathered. It was fine if he met someone he did not like, but if he met someone with evil intentions, he would suffer an undeserved calamity. "Yes, Mister," Wu Aoyue said obediently. She was secretly surprised by Suyu's caution. She had thought that he would be vain because he was young. She did not expect him to be more composed than she had imagined. Suyu then started to ask about her background and the situation of the geniuses in the Jojo continent. After listening to her, Suyu's expression turned serious. The 18 blessed and heavenly lands referred to 18 excellent training grounds. They were divided into 2 palaces and 16 factions. The returning principal palace and the soul-seizing palace were part of the 16 factions. They each had a few divine master-level elders and faction masters. As for the 2 palaces, the Purple Cloud Palace and the Red Blood Palace, they were the 2 great forces that ruled over the 18 blessed and heavenly lands. The 16 factions were just the subsidiary factions of the 2 palaces. It was rumored that the 2 palaces had frightening fighters who surpassed the divine master level. Chapter 486. What shocked Suyu the most was that this woman's power was extremely great. She had already broken through to the Divine Master realm several years ago, and she could be said to be the greatest female cultivator in the 18 blessed and heavenly lands. Wu Aoyue and another youth called Wei Tao were outer sanctum disciples of the Purple Cloud Palace. They had followed Lu Chuyi into the mysterious heavenly divine pavilion to complete their mission. Suyu didn't know whether to laugh or cry, as he had unintentionally provoked 2 divine masters. But when he thought about it, he felt relieved. No matter how strong the Jojo divine masters were, they would not be able to affect the Jinlong continent, so there was nothing to worry about. From what Wu Aoyue had said, Suyu also knew that most of the geniuses of the Jojo continent were aiming for the mysterious heavenly palace. The mysterious heavenly palace was the most important relic in the mysterious heavenly divine pavilion. It was extremely vast and had yet to be completely excavated. This palace contained more than 70% of the mysterious heavenly divine pavilion's resources. Most of the people who were trying to make a breakthrough to the fairy realm had found their opportunities in the mysterious heavenly palace. This was an extremely important clue to Suyu. And if he wanted to find the great real dragon's blood and the lightning-avoiding silver pearl, he would have to start from the mysterious heavenly palace. "Let's go to the stone forest." Suyu waved his hand and sent Wu Aoyue into the 9 jade spiritual pearl. Wu Aoyue was shocked. She thought that Suyu was going to kill her after asking about the situation. Who would have thought that he would actually appear in a valley with birds chirping and flowers fragrant? Immediately after, a small snow-white tree flew in. It was the mystic feather pomegranate tree. At the same time, a fist-sized clump of golden soil suddenly surged out from the ground of the valley. The profound feather spirit pomegranate tree was rooted in it. "I will let you out when I need you. From now on, help me take care of the valley and look after the nursery." Suyu's voice reverberated in the empty valley, as her divine master uncle was in the mysterious heavenly divine pavilion. How could Suyu let Wu Aoyue out openly? Wu Aoyue was startled at first, but when she saw the golden yellow soil clearly, she pondered for a long time before her face gradually turned solemn. Finally, it turned into a look of shock. Supreme growing soil. The supreme growing soil that was rumored to be able to be exchanged for an immortal grade cultivation technique? Here, there are more than 100 of them here. How is that possible? The appearance of the supreme growing soil caused Wu Aoyue to be completely confused. It was difficult to find even one grain of supreme growing soil in the 9 regions. But here, there were more than 100 grains. If word of this got out, the old monsters of the Purple Cloud Palace and the Red Blood Palace would probably come out of seclusion. With an unprecedented impact, Wu Aoyue was lost in the huge shock that she did not expect. Under Su Yu's control, she was isolated and did not come face to face with Qin Xiener and Long Wuxin. As his thoughts returned to his physical body, Su Yu looked fearfully at the depths of the ground, at the giant blood-red net that covered the land. Deep uneasiness surged in his heart. I have to leave the 7th level as soon as possible. Su Yu felt a sense of danger descend upon him all of a sudden. His figure flickered, and he flew quickly toward the stone forest. A layer of blood-red scales gradually appeared on the surface of the silver snake above the corpse grassland. It seemed to be evolving. On the 7th level of the Divine Pavilion, at the end of a place where lightning flashed. At the end of the path, there was a broken stairway that led straight into the sky. According to what the Sovereign King said, this heaven stairway can lead us directly to the 8th heaven world and reach the place we want to go. Lord Yu looked up at the heaven stairway and said slowly, "But the 8th level of the Divine Pavilion is different from the 7th level. Its surface area is less than 100th of the 7th level of the Divine Pavilion, and it is very easy to meet strong fighters there. The fighting there is extremely intense. The abilities of the 6 of us are a little weak. Hence, we should not get entangled with others. Entering the place we want to find is the best choice." Hearing this, Lord Bai Luo raised his eyebrows. "Yu, it is good to be cautious, but it is not good to lower our morale." In other words, he was a little dissatisfied with Lord Yu's presumptuous assessment that the abilities of the 6 of them were weak. The other great sages also had a hint of arrogance on their faces. Lord Yu calmly replied, "We have not met with any danger along the way, and we have not met any geniuses from the Jojo continent. I think that you might have been too careless. The abilities of the geniuses of the Jojo continent are not something we can imagine." Bai Luo let out a light grunt. He did not speak, taking the lead to ascend the stairway. The rest of the people ascended the stairway one after another. The stone forest was in a state of chaos. Moreover, the situation had already undergone an unexpected change, especially after the arrival of the demon faction disciples. As for Su Yu, he had finally arrived at the stone forest after a few days of continuous travel. Out of caution, Su Yu kept the divine flying ship when he was 10,000 miles away, carefully approaching the ground. Clang, clang. As Su Yu slowly approached, he suddenly heard a clanging sound, as well as a few furious roars. Among them, there was a familiar female voice. With a thought, Su Yu approached. He saw a group of orange-robed youths and a lady in a green dress. They were working together to attack 2 half-gods with decent abilities. The lady in the green dress was none other than Yuchan from the returning principal palace. She and 5 other half-gods were attacking the 2 cultivators, who were dressed differently. It seemed that the 2 of them were wandering martial artists. Among the 5 half-gods, 2 were top-notch. Including Yuchan, there were 3 of them. Under the absolute suppression of their abilities, the 2 top-notch half-gods were finally surrounded after 100 moves, as they did not have enough spirit energy. Killed 2 more wandering martial artists. With that, the 6 of us will have the lives of 5 wandering martial artists. With just 1 more wandering martial artist life, we will have a spot in the transportation spell. The orange-robed youth in the lead had gray-white eyebrows and sinister eyes as he laughed coldly. Yuchan, who was at the side, maintained a distance from them. She had a helpless expression on her face. Suddenly, the white-browed youth sniffed the air, and his cold eyes shot in Su Yu's direction. "Who is it? Come out." After saying this, a spiraling dart flew out from his palm, shooting toward a giant green rock. With a rumble, the giant green rock burst like a bubble. A figure flew out from within the debris. It was Su Yu, who was hiding in the dark. Su Yu was slightly surprised. He had used the cicada cloak, yet he could still be found so easily. The geniuses of the Jojo continent were indeed extraordinarily strong. Wandering martial artist? The white-browed youth froze, letting out a ferocious laugh. Even the heavens are helping me. The other 4 orange-robed youths had cold expressions, sealing off Su Yu's path of retreat. Wait, why is it you? Yu-chan flew over in shock, secretly signaling Su Yu with her eyes, telling him to escape quickly. The white-browed youth creased his brows. Why? Do you know this wandering martial artist? Yu-chan stared at Su Yu, her tone filled with fear. This person's abilities are very strong. We should not attack him. We should find another target. The white-browed youth was displeased. What a joke. Why would I, Baiyu, be afraid of a mere wandering martial artist? Attack. Hearing this, Yu-chan's expression changed. No, but it was too late. The 5 of them attacked at the same time, trying to kill Su Yu from all directions. Chapter 487. With a whoosh, the black jade ring on Su Yu's index finger flashed. A misty purple air current spiraled out, turning into a purple umbrella in Su Yu's palm. It was the Purple Sun incredible umbrella. The white-browed youth was stunned. Then his expression changed. Purple Sun incredible umbrella? You're Xueling? When he glanced at Su Yu's red hair, he was even more certain of Su Yu's identity. He was the infamous disciple of the soul-seizing palace, Xueling. Hearing this, the expressions of the other 4 also changed, their expressions flickering with fear. How could they not know of Xueling's reputation? Wait, this is a misunderstanding. We did not mean to offend you. The white-browed youth's eyelids twitched. His pursuit came to an abrupt halt, and he retreated. But Su Yu ignored him. He rubbed his hands together, and the Purple Sun incredible umbrella spun, opening up. Su Yu stood with one hand behind his back, the other holding the umbrella. His expression was cold, his blood-red hair fluttering in the wind. His broken bronze mask gave off a mysterious feeling. Looking from afar, he looked extremely sinister. But what was even more sinister was that the sky within 1,000 jong radius was suddenly enveloped by a ball of purple light. The temperature of the air rose rapidly, and even the soil on the ground began to emit black smoke. The space within 1,000 jong radius was quickly engulfed in thick flames. The temperature was extremely high, far higher than the flames of the origin. The 3 half-gods only had time to let out a pathetic cry before they were turned into ashes. All that was left of their bodies were the hardened middle-grade divine artifacts. The white-browed youth and another top-notch half-god were aghast. They used spirit energy to protect themselves, their bodies burning with raging flames as they charged out of the flames, shouting furiously, Xueling, you have gone too far. Su Yu scoffed. When the 5 of them had joined forces to kill Su Yu, had they ever thought that they had gone too far? Su Yu had no sympathy for such people. Split up and escape, the white-browed youth shouted, rolling onto the ground to extinguish the purple flames on his body. His figure flashed as he ran toward the stone forest where there were more people. As for the other top-notch demigod, he split up and fled in another direction. Su Yu's eyes glowed coldly. It's too late to leave now. With a flash, Su Yu chased after the other top-notch half-god. His index finger glowed, and 9 needles formed the 9 yin-yang formation, enveloping the sky. Before that top-notch demigod could react, he was pierced and killed by the 9 yin-yang formation. The white-browed young man vaguely heard a scream of agony, and he turned around to take a look, just in time to catch a glimpse of the other party's fallen figure. And he couldn't help but feel a chill run down his spine. Sanguis was indeed as terrifying as the rumors said. Even a top-notch demigod could not last more than a few breaths in his hands. However, in the span of a few breaths, he had already calmly fled thousands of miles away, and he would soon be able to return to the stone forest. With so many experts there, even Sanguis would have to think twice before making his move. Then, with a crackling sound of thunder, a bolt of lightning descended in front of him. As the lightning flickered, a figure appeared. It was Suyu. With a wave of his hand, the 9 yin-yang formation descended and enveloped him. The white-browed young man drew a sharp breath. Just what kind of divine ability was this? Seeing that the formation had been activated, the white-browed young man's heart skipped a beat. Without any hesitation, he took out a small lion shrouded in green light from his bosom. The lion's body was filled with boundless true energy. Once it appeared, it gave off an extremely dangerous feeling. Sanguis, if you continue to push your luck, don't blame us for perishing together. This green jade spiritual lion contains an attack of the fairy realm. If you do not wish to die, retreat immediately. But Suyu was unmoved. The 9 yin-yang formation enveloped the white-browed young man. At the same time, he weaved signs with one hand, and 5 misty balls of light suddenly flew out, spinning. A 5-colored pillar of light formed a cage, enveloping the white-browed young man within it. As the cage compressed, his body was unable to move. Everything seemed to take a long time, but from the moment the dry cloud 5 elemental formation appeared to the moment it was activated, only a few breaths had passed. The white-browed young man cursed in his heart. He wanted to break free, but it was too late. At that moment, the 9 yin-yang formation shot toward him. A pathetic shriek reverberated through the sky. The white-browed young man's body was pierced with countless tiny holes, and his life force was extinguished. The green jade, spiritual lion in his hands fell to the ground, but it was caught by a palm. Suyu held the green jade, spiritual lion, feeling the attack of the fairy realm within it. He could not help but reveal a surprised expression. He had thought that he could casually kill a top-notch half-god, but he did not expect to obtain a treasure that contained an attack of the fairy realm. It seemed that this young man, Baiyu, did not have an ordinary identity. It was most likely a gift from an elder. After plundering the person's body, Suyu burned the corpse to ashes with a flick of his finger, after which his figure flickered as he flew back to Yu Chan's vicinity, taking care of the other corpses. Their remaining divine artifacts were unceremoniously stored in the 9 jade spiritual pearl. After doing all that, Suyu casually kept all the treasures in front of Yu Chan, who was staring at him with wide, beautiful eyes. His expression was calm and indifferent, as if it was normal for a human king to kill a group of half-gods. All of this happened in the blink of an eye. In just a short moment, the half-gods of a faction had been completely annihilated. When did the Black Snow Devil King become so powerful? The huge disparity caused Yu Chan to be in disbelief at the scene before her eyes. In her memory, Suyu, who possessed 2 types of origins, could barely fight a top-notch half-god. But now it seemed that he could easily kill a top-notch half-god. In other words, if Suyu were to attack Yu Chan, he would not need to expend much effort. At that moment, Suyu gave her a terrifying pressure. It was as if she was facing the almost invincible Shuel Ling. What caused her expression to turn even paler was that senior brother Yang Yidao's dry cloud 5 elemental formation had fallen into the hands of the Black Snow Devil King. Moreover, even Yang Yidao needed 5 people to fully activate the 5 round pearls. However, Suyu could fully control the 5 round pearls by himself. What did this mean? It meant that the Black Snow Devil King had successfully refined the treasure. Whether or not Yang Yidao was in danger, or how the Black Snow Devil King had forcefully erased the imprint of the Divine Master Uncle, were no longer important. The important thing was that she had personally witnessed the dry cloud 5 elemental formation in the hands of the Black Snow Devil King. There was no reason for him to let her off. It was very likely that Suyu's next step would be to silence her. Miss Yu Chan, long time no see. Suyu smiled, walking over slowly. Yu Chan's body turned rigid, her breathing stagnant, her heart thumping. Suyu had merely greeted her, but in Yu Chan's eyes, it was filled with the pressure of death. Her face revealed a smile that was uglier than crying. It has only been a few days, but Sir Black Snow's abilities have improved to such an extent. No, I should say that Sir Black Snow has hidden his abilities too deeply. Now that she thought about it, the mysterious disappearance of the Ghost Prison Envoy was most likely related to Black Snow. It was most likely true that Suyu had saved Qin Zhuoyang from Shui Gui. It was laughable that she had treated Su Yu's humble words as the truth, thinking that Qin Zhuyang was the main force and Su Yu was only supporting him. An unbelievable thought appeared in her mind. Biting her lips, she hesitantly said, "I wonder how senior brother Yang Yidao is now." "Dead," Su Yu calmly replied. Hearing this, Yu Chan's heart thumped. The brown pupils in her beautiful eyes shrank to the size of a needle's eye. Her petite body trembled abruptly, breathing intensely. Her chest rose and fell continuously, showing the shock in her heart. Yang Yidao was really dead. She could not accept this shocking reality. In her opinion, it was more likely that Su Yu had used a trick to steal the treasure from senior brother Yang. At the very most, Su Yu had relied on some treasures to severely injure senior brother Yang and take the opportunity to steal the treasure. But Yang Yidao was really dead, killed by Su Yu. Regaining her senses, Yu Chan's face was ashen, her eyes filled with despair. Does that mean that Sir Black Snow does not intend to let me off? He stole the treasures of the returning principal palace and killed the disciples of the returning principal palace. Since the returning principal palaces Yu Chan knew about this, there was no reason for him to be forgiven. At this moment, Su Yu had already walked over, smiling. Initially, I did not intend to do anything to Miss Yu Chan. Yang Yidao deserved it. I will not take my anger out on an innocent person. But Miss Yu Chan saw it by accident, and I cannot let you leave. Regardless of whether it was the Dry Cloud 5 elemental formation or Yang Yidao's death, it was not appropriate to expose them before they left the mysterious heavenly divine pavilion. Yu Chan laughed bitterly, lowering her head in silence. She did not resist, allowing Su Yu to do as he pleased. Su Yu nodded. "That is good too. Save me the trouble." After saying this, a slit appeared between his brows. A seal, formed by the fusion of thunderbolt and soul, flew out, entering Yu Chan's body. Yu Chan had already accepted her death, but when she suddenly felt the seal on her soul, she could not help but be shocked. "Soul seal? You are not going to kill me?" Su Yu helped her up, replying with a question. "What is the benefit of killing you? For the time being, you will stay by my side. When a mysterious heavenly divine pavilion ends, I will naturally release the seal and let you live. I hope that you do not disappoint me during this period of time." Yu Chan was stunned for a moment, revealing a surprised expression. Regardless of whether Su Yu would let her off in the end, she would definitely be able to keep her life for the time being. From his words, Yu Chan could tell that Su Yu was a sentimental person. They had fought side by side for a period of time, and he did not wish to kill her. "Thank you, Sir Black Snow, for not killing me," Yu Chan said respectfully. Su Yu nodded, his expression turning serious. "Tell me about the transportation spell. What is the situation now? Why are you hunting wandering martial artists?" Hearing this, Yu Chan could not help but feel embarrassed. She was also secretly glad that she had not acted rashly when Bai Yu attacked. Otherwise, she would have been among the ashes on the ground. "It is Cho Ziming," Yu Chan said briefly, her expression grave. "Cho Ziming?" Su Yu was at a loss. Who was Cho Ziming? Chapter 488. Oh, so it was him. The outer sanctum disciple of the soul-seizing palace who had chased after Qin Xiener and Long Wuxin was Cho Ziming. Su Yu's eyes turned cold. If this person had designs on Xiener, he might have to seek justice for her. Before he came, there were hundreds of people fighting around the stone forest spell. There were too many people, and there was only one spell, so the number of people transported was limited. The fighting was intense, and it was a stalemate. Later, Cho Ziming arrived and shocked everyone. He calmed everyone down and guarded against each other. Later, it was Cho Ziming who suggested to get rid of the wandering cultivators first, leaving all the slots for the disciples of the 18 blessed and heavenly lands to kill the wandering cultivators first. He also stipulated that the number of wandering cultivators killed would determine the ranking. Only the top 50 would have the chance to use the transportation spell to enter the 8th level of the Divine Pavilion. Hence, the scene of Yu Chan and her group surrounding and killing the wandering cultivators occurred. Su Yu stood with his hands behind his back, staring at the ground with a thoughtful expression. With Cho's Ziming's abilities, no one would dare stop him if he were to enter first. Why did he stay behind and suggest such a massacre instead of leaving? What was he up to? Since it was a competition of killing, how did you determine how many wandering cultivators you killed? So you asked. Yuchan took out a round plate. There was a mark like a cross on it, and it was a dull color. Cho Ziming used a secret technique to place an aura on all the disciples of the 18 blessed and heavenly lands. In the entire 7th level of the Divine Pavilion, anyone who does not have an aura will be killed within close proximity. There will be such a mark on this specially refined disc. This technique was originally used by the soul-seizing palace to train their disciples by killing each other, but was used here. Suyu understood the principle behind it, and he felt the cruelty of the demonic path. The demonic path was powerful and overbearing. It seemed like the rumors were not baseless. The cruel and bloody path of cultivation meant that they were stronger than ordinary cultivators. After thinking for some time, a green light flashed on Suyu's arm, and several identical round plates flew out. Each of them had a mark on it. Based on a ratio of the number of disciples to wandering cultivators, said Suyu. Basically, killing a wandering cultivator would get me into the top 50, and I would be transported. Suyu mulled it over for a moment before he crushed the other 3 discs, leaving only one behind. Then, a light flickered in the interspatial ring, and a set of returning Principal Palace clothes flew out from Yang Yidao's belongings. When Xiaochen wore it, there was a picture of a burning cloud on his chest. This was the symbol of the returning Origin Palace. Then, Suyu took off the broken bronze mask, and his hair returned to its original silver-white color. His true appearance, which he had disguised for so long, was finally revealed. Her jade-like face was like a crown, her lips were red, and her teeth were white. Her facial features were handsome, and her eyes were bright and full of expression, as deep as the starry sky. The corners of his lips curled up slightly, emitting a faintly discernible evil aura. Her smooth silver hair cascaded down her back like a waterfall. A cool breeze blew past, causing her silver hair to flutter gently. In the sunlight, it reflected a peculiar luster. In the blink of an eye, Suyu had transformed from an oppressive demonic cultivator with a blood hair mask into a handsome, silver-haired youth. His demonic aura gave him an air of nobility. Paired with the exquisite black robes of the returning Principal Palace, there was an inexplicable sense of nobility. Yuchan was stunned. Looking at Suyu's unexpectedly young and handsome face, she was slightly absent-minded. Ever since they had met, Suyu had given her the feeling of an old man. She had thought that he was a youth above 20 years old, but looking at him now, he was only about 17 years old. That face was even more handsome. At first glance, he was elegant and handsome, giving her the feeling that he was a celestial being. Senior Yuchan, what are you looking at? Suyu had a faint smile, addressing her as senior. It was obvious that he was going to disguise himself as a disciple of the returning Principal Palace. Apart from Yuchan, the people sent by the returning Principal Palace had all been annihilated. As long as Yuchan did not say anything, who would suspect Suyu's identity? When Yuchan came back to her senses, 2 faint crimson clouds appeared on her beautiful, jade-like face. Her ears were blushing. Yuchan had an awkward expression, quickly averting her gaze. She could not help but ask curiously, "Is this your true appearance?" Suyu smiled and nodded. What else could it be? Yuchan felt uneasy, losing her usual air of heroism. She muttered softly, "You look quite good. All right, you shall pretend to be a disciple of the returning Principal Palace. What name do you intend to call yourself?" Suyu smiled. Inyu. His face revealed a nostalgic expression. It had been a long time since he had used that name. That's it. Let's go. Suyu shook his sleeves, flying into the sky. Yuchan looked at Suyu's back, clenched her teeth, and followed him with a solemn expression. In the center of the stone forest, there was a spell 100 jong wide. At that moment, there were 20 to 30 people standing around it. They were the disciples of the various factions who had returned after successfully killing the wandering martial artists. Suddenly, everyone looked towards the horizon. 2 figures were flying through the air, and their expressions were more or less vigilant. Yu-chan of the returning principal palace, as expected. Murmurs could be heard from the crowd. They were somewhat fearful of Yu-chan's abilities. But who was the silver-haired lad beside her? Was there a human king disciple of the returning principal palace at the mysterious heavenly stage? Did you not realize that the 5 people who allied with her, by you, did not return? The appearance of the 2 of them caused a commotion. The silver-haired young man, who had appeared out of nowhere, caused them to be even more surprised. In the center of the spell sat a black-robed figure. He had short hair and hawk-like eyes, his whole body emitting a frightening aura. Of the dozens of people present, he was the only one sitting cross-legged in the center of the spell. The rest of the people could only stand around the spell, not daring to approach. Suyu saw this person from afar, his expression grave. Even though he had not seen Cho Ziming's true appearance in the process of being pursued, he would not forget his aura. Cho Ziming slowly opened his eyes, his cold gaze sweeping past the 2 of them. His brows creased when he saw Suyu. "Congratulations, Yu-chan," said Cho Ziming. "There's a spot for you in the transportation spell. I wonder who you are? You look unfamiliar." Cho Ziming observed Suyu, feeling a sense of familiarity. It was as if he had met Suyu before. But no matter what, he could not connect the blood-haired black snow devil king to the young man in front of him. Yu-chan calmly said, "He is naturally the disciple of the returning principal palace, Inyu." When the rest of the people heard this, they could not help but feel suspicious. Cho Ziming's gaze flickered. A disciple of the returning principal palace? I do not remember him being there during the battle at the mysterious heavenly stage. Could he be a wandering martial artist? He had hit the nail on the head. Yu-chan's expression was calm. "You must be joking. I really cannot think of a reason to bring a wandering martial artist and pretend to be a disciple of the returning principal palace." Hearing this, the group of people creased their brows. What she said made sense. If the soul-seizing palace could use a secret technique to send you in, the returning principal palace could naturally think of another way to send him into the mysterious heavenly divine pavilion through another channel. Wandering martial artists had gone around the mysterious heavenly stage, thinking of other ways to enter the mysterious heavenly divine pavilion. Hearing this, many of the people dispelled their suspicions. They were only curious about Suyu's identity. Why would the returning principal palace spend so much effort to find another channel to send a mere human king? Cho Ziming looked at Suyu deep in thought. He then silently retracted his gaze. At this moment, 4 figures flew over. One of them flew over the stone forest, directly landing in the center of the transportation spell. Cho Ziming's brows creased. He opened his eyes to take a look, his gaze sweeping past the person in front of him. He then closed his eyes again, the ferocious expression on his face gradually receding. Suyu was slightly shocked. Concubine Ming. Looking at the other 3, weren't they members of the 4 great ancient clans? Among them, Shijie had fought with Xia Jingyu before. It was them. But what Suyu found strange was that Concubine Ming, whose abilities were clearly average, was actually standing with Cho Ziming on the transportation spell. Suspicious, Suyu secretly used his soul eyes to take a look. At that moment, his pupils shrank, secretly revealing a shocked expression. On Concubine Ming's body, Suyu could faintly see a figure. That figure was none other than heavenly ghost Sheng Ge. As if sensing Suyu's gaze, Concubine Ming's cold gaze swept over. Noticing Suyu, her eyes revealed a suspicious expression. It was obvious that she also felt that Suyu looked familiar. The rest of the disciples from the 18 blessed and heavenly lands did not dare attack the 4 wandering martial artists. Their gazes toward Sheng Ge were filled with fear. Whoosh! At this moment, a purple-robed figure broke through the air. It was Bai Qi. His figure spun, landing in the center of the transportation spell as well. Cho Ziming and Ming Fei came over together. Fear flickered in the depths of their eyes at the same time. Suddenly, Bai Qi looked in Suyu's direction, his gaze fixed on Suyu. A look of joy flashed past his eyes. He had actually recognized Suyu. Without changing his expression, he gave Suyu a look. Suyu nodded his head. He was still shocked. He had not expected the Ghost King to recognize him. If that was the case, when the time was right, he would have to join forces with the Ghost King to kill the old man in the painting and fulfill their promise. Following which, many figures flew over. Some were strong, some were weak. So you could feel a few auras similar to Shuel Ling among the strong ones. Furthermore, Su Yu discovered that one of the crystals in a blue-robed young lady's dantian had reached the level of a vital energy crystal. She was at the level of a half-fairy. She was on par with Yang Yidao. As if sensing the probing gaze, the blue-robed young lady looked over, her eyes filled with a hint of warning. Yu Chan, who was at the side, felt an indescribable coldness. She could not help but turn her head to look. Her expression changed, and she said hurriedly, "You be careful. This lady is an outer sanctum disciple of the White Lotus faction. Her name is Shang Shuilian. The White Lotus faction and the returning Principal Palace are not on good terms. Now that we are in the mysterious Heavenly Divine Pavilion, there will be conflicts between us. Try not to provoke her. Even Senior Yang Yidao does not have the confidence to win against this lady. Is that so?" Suyu secretly noted it down, observing the other strong martial artists who were like Shueling. Most of them were strong martial artists from their respective factions, the ones who were leading the way. In no time, most of the people gathered. Chapter 489. These are the first 3 wandering cultivators he had killed after he had announced the rules. Hearing this, those who had successfully killed the spirit beasts all took out their discs to be examined. As for those who had not killed the wandering cultivators, they were unwilling to leave, coldly observing the situation from the sidelines. After the inspection was over, only about 30 people had completed the task. After all, some of them had killed more than one wandering cultivator. As such, there were still about 40 people who had not completed the task. In other words, there were still 20 people among them who had the chance to fight for the remaining 20 slots. But Cho Ziming coldly swept his gaze across them. Those who have not completed the task leave. You can't even kill a wandering cultivator. With your abilities, going to the mysterious Heavenly Palace is suicide. You might as well stay at the 7th level of the Divine Pavilion. However, he announced in a domineering manner that he would rather leave 20 empty spots than let those who didn't complete the mission get them. These words undoubtedly angered the remaining 40 people. Cho Ziming, it's fine if you arrogantly asked us to kill wandering cultivators, but now you waste 20 slots. Who do you think we are? A top half-god who had been unlucky and had not managed to kill a wandering cultivator, scolded angrily. His abilities were at least at Shueling's level. The rest of the people also revealed expressions of righteous indignation. Ha! Faced with the anger of the crowd, Cho Ziming laughed loudly. His smile was filled with disdain. Who do I think you are? A bunch of useless trash. You can't even kill a rogue cultivator. You've wasted your sex efforts to nurture you. If you're not trash, then what are you? His sharp eyes coldly swept across the crowd. If any of you are unhappy, come up and enter the mysterious Heavenly Divine Pavilion. I was held up by something and have not killed anyone in a long time. Hearing this, the dozens of people became angry. Just as they were retreating, Cho Ziming's eyes flashed, and he let out a strange laugh. Those 20 slots are indeed not for you. But I did not say that the other 30 slots are not for you. If you can snatch the slots from the rest of the people who have slots, it is not impossible to prove your abilities. Hearing this, Yu-chan was shocked, anger appearing on her face. This Cho Ziming is intentionally trying to kill each other. Suyu nodded without batting an eyelid, taking a few steps back. He was observing the surroundings from the corner of his eyes, especially Shang Shuilian from the White Lotus faction. Her abilities were the most terrifying. The eyes of the 40 people lit up, and a ferocious glint appeared in their eyes. Their gazes quickly swept through the crowd, searching for their next target. Apart from the human kings of the 4 ancient clans who were under Shang Ji's protection, those who were able to reach the stone forest and survive the 10 days of chaotic battle were all demigods. The only remaining human king, Suyu, was unusually eye-catching among the crowd. In just a few breaths' time, Suyu sensed that at least 10 pairs of eyes had locked onto him. As for the rest, there were more than 10 hesitant gazes. This was because Suyu's identity represented the returning principal palace. Young Dao, who was a half-fairy, was in the mysterious heavenly divine pavilion. This was the main reason why they were afraid. As for the remaining 20 pairs of eyes, a small number of them, especially the one who spoke first, who was at the level of Xueling, noticed that Suyu was not ordinary and ignored him directly. The reason why the rest of them chose to give up was that Suyu still had a top-notch half-god, Yu-chan, by his side. Normal half-gods were nothing in front of her. Kill! It was unknown who roared, but the atmosphere was completely ignited. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. In no time, all kinds of techniques and magical treasures shone with divine lights of various colors. The colors interweaved with each other, extremely dazzling. A chaotic battle broke out. The people from both sides roared angrily, attacking each other ferociously. As soon as they exchanged blows, there were casualties, letting out horrible shrieks. 4 demigod experts were heavily injured in the first wave of attacks and were sent flying. One of the demigods was even blasted into meat paste. The ring that fell to the ground was immediately snatched by the other 3 demigods, and they started fighting over it. What was shocking was that the other 3 heavily injured half-gods did not stop after they were sent flying back to their own camps. Instead, they were killed by their own people. In no time, flesh and blood flew everywhere. Everyone's eyes were bloodshot. At that moment, a half-god managed to snatch the ring with much difficulty. However, the next moment he was attacked by 5 people at the same time and was blasted into meat paste on the spot. The intense battle caused the 2 sides, who had not joined the battle, to feel a chill. On Suyu's side, a few half-gods, who were targeted, clenched their teeth and threw the ring and their robes away. I give up. After saying this, they took to the sky and left, not stopping in the slightest. After which, a few people realized that something was amiss and threw the ring away to escape. The remaining people were those who planned to enter the 8th level of the Divine Pavilion and fight it out. As for Suyu, who was the center of attention, he did not throw the ring away. Creak! Suddenly, a piercingly cold sound of something piercing through the air could be heard beneath Suyu's feet. It was a spinning top breaking out of the ground in a strange manner. The top was only the size of a head, but there was a row of sharp, thin blades embedded in the top. As it spun, the top was like a gear, moving from the bottom to the top, wanting to slice Suyu into 2. Suyu let out a cold smile. He slid his shoulder and moved 10 feet to the side, easily dodging the attack. After which, a golden light glowed in his palm, and a golden dagger appeared in his palm. With a slash of Suyu's hand, the middle gray divine artifact top was sliced into 2 by the golden scale dagger on the spot. A groan could be heard from within the crowd. It was a short man with a face full of pockmarks. He was hiding behind the crowd, secretly controlling the top. As the divine artifact of the short cultivator had been destroyed, he let out a groan and was immediately discovered by Suyu. Realizing the risk of being exposed, the expression of the short cultivator changed. He tapped the ground with the tip of his toes, wanting to escape. But how could Suyu let him leave? He let out a cold laugh, lightly shouting, "Quick!" At once, a steel needle shot out from beneath the body of the short cultivator, piercing his heart diagonally and killing him on the spot. But the crowd was in a chaotic battle, and almost no one noticed the strange scene in front of them. "Kill that little brat!" Someone let out a roar. At once, 4 figures flew towards Suyu at the same time, wanting to take his life. Among them was a top-notch half-god. Yu-chan's expression turned cold. "Humph, you're asking for death." Killing Suyu in front of her was an act of belittling her. But before she could move, someone patted her shoulder. "No need, I'll do it myself." He had just said this when 4 steel needles shot out from beneath the feet of the 4 figures without any warning, each piercing their heart. It had appeared suddenly, and there was no way to defend against it. The 3 normal half-gods died on the spot with a pathetic grunt, falling limply to the ground. As for the top-notch half-god, he had sharp senses, barely dodging the needles and brushing past them. But before he could heave a sigh of relief, he felt a chill in his chest. After the 3 steel needles had killed the 3 of them, they had immediately shot over, taking advantage of the moment when they were dodging to attack from behind. In an instant, the 4 half-gods had fallen at the same time, finally attracting their attention. The people fighting could not help but be shocked. What kind of divine being could kill 4 half-gods at the same time? One of them was a well-known top-notch half-god. It was only when Suyu casually passed through the crowd and emptied the 4 corpses of their belongings that the crowd was shocked. Could it be that the person who killed them was this little brat in front of them? The group of half-gods who had their eyes on Suyu felt their hearts pound. "If you want my spot, I'll welcome you at any time." Suyu looked around, raising his hand and grabbing. The remaining steel needles flew back into his palm from the ground. At that moment, the people who had their eyes on Suyu finally had a look of fear in their eyes. With one move, he intimidated everyone, and no one else had any intentions of attacking Suyu. Suyu stood with his hands behind his back for a moment. Seeing that no one was attacking him, he turned to leave. But suddenly his brows twitched, and he subconsciously looked at the corpses. He acutely realized that not all of their blood had seeped into the soil. Instead, a portion of their blood was missing, and its whereabouts were unknown. Suyu revolved his soul eyes, and he realized that there was a black chain, invisible to the naked eye, on each of the 4 corpses. The missing blood had been swallowed by the black chain. Looking in the other directions, it was not just the 4 of them. The other corpses also had black chains of nothingness, swallowing their blood. "This is—" Suyu's eyes glowed. With a thought, a blood-red fog shot out from the bottom of his feet. The fog entered the blood, and it was absorbed by the black chain. The battle between the 2 sides was in full swing, reaching its climax. Both sides fought fiercely, and fresh blood splattered everywhere. But no one had any intentions of attacking Suyu. He passed through the crowd, heading in the direction of Ichon. However, all of a sudden, a lotus flower condensed from cold air shot out from the crowd. The lotus rotated rapidly, its petals like blades, slicing the air with black lines. This was the sign of space being sliced apart. At that moment, a half-god was forced to retreat, and he blocked Suyu's path. With a shrill, horrible shriek, his body was sliced into 2 on the spot like a piece of paper. Without stopping, he flew towards Suyu. In the blink of an eye, Suyu moved 30 feet to the side without hesitation. But his figure had just landed when he felt a chill on his back. He was shocked, but his expression was unusually calm. Without thinking, he took a step forward. At the same time, he turned back to look. The icy, cold snow lotus, which he had clearly shaken off, had changed direction and was once again shooting toward Suyu's vital parts. Suyu was shocked, and his figure retreated rapidly, distancing himself from the dangerous, icy, cold snow lotus. But at that moment, a second icy, cold snow lotus suddenly appeared behind him, piercing through Suyu's figure without warning. Sensing the change in the airflow behind him, Suyu leaned to the side, narrowly avoiding it. The sneak attack of the icy cold snow lotus brushed past Suyu's shoulder. However, just as Suyu was about to heave a sigh of relief, an icy cold snow lotus descended from above his head. At the same time, the other 2 icy cold snow lotuses flew over, attacking from 3 different directions. Those 3 directions were extremely tricky, and they were all directions that Suyu could escape from. Such an intricate plan had caused Suyu to fall into a desperate situation in an instant. Yu-chan's expression changed. In an instant, Suyu had fallen into such a situation, but it was too late to save him. The people who were watching were also shocked. Which expert was it that made a move? Who had forced Suyu into such a predicament? Seeing that Suyu was about to be killed by the 3 icy cold snow lotuses, Suyu's body suddenly circulated with lightning. The 3 icy cold snow lotuses flew past, killing Suyu on the spot. But there was no scene of flesh and blood splattering. Instead, the sky was filled with broken lightning. Among the crowd, a blue-robed young lady was weaving signs with both hands, her fingertips moving skillfully. Seeing that scene happen so suddenly, a look of shock flashed past her eyes, after which she realized something. Her expression changed, and her delicate body moved to the side immediately. Creak! Just as she was about to move, a steel needle brushed past her arm. The strong air current tore her sleeves, revealing her fair skin. On her snow-white arm, there was a shallow wound. But just as the young lady dodged, a bolt of lightning suddenly appeared behind her. A golden dagger silently pierced the back of her neck. The expression of the blue-robed young lady changed abruptly. Vital energy exploded from her body, forming a protective vital energy. At that moment, the golden dagger in Su Yu's hand moved abnormally slowly, as if it had been inserted into a quagmire. Taking advantage of the opportunity, the blue-robed young lady leaped forward, successfully dodging the sure-kill attack. But she extended her hand to touch the back of her neck. There was fresh blood on her palm. Even though she had blocked the golden scale dagger just now, a wound had been sliced open by the sharp air current created by the dagger. This caused the blue-robed young lady to be both angry and shocked. She turned her head and glared at Su Yu. Su Yu's figure walked out from the lightning, his expression indifferent. I was wondering who it was. So it's you. Chapter 490. She had taken advantage of the chaos to attack Su Yu. Feeling the slight pain from the back of her neck, Shang Xiulian was both embarrassed and angry. With her abilities, not only had she failed in her sneak attack on a human king jr., she had even been injured by him. As if in response to her emotions, the gazes of many fighters towards Su Yu finally changed. If he had single-handedly killed a top-notch demigod and 3 ordinary demigods in the past, then now he had become a fearsome existence. He was actually able to fight Shang Xiulian without being at a disadvantage. Looking at the entire battlefield, only a few people could achieve such abilities. Even a few strong martial artists, who were at the same level as Xue Ling, looked at Su Yu with caution in their eyes. That elusive lightning escape was quite a threat to them. Su Yu was slightly disappointed. That dagger, just now, would have sliced open the neck of a normal half-god, but Shang Xiulian had only left a small wound. Her physical body was not as strong as Xue Ling's, but it was not far off. Humph! You overestimate yourself. Shang Xiulian grunted in anger and embarrassment. She shook her sleeves, and white snow lotuses flew out one after another. A total of 9 white snow lotuses emitted a cold aura surrounding Shang Xiulian. Each of the lotuses was like a sharp blade, slicing the air apart. Go! Shang Xiulian pointed, and the 9 snow lotuses instantly turned into 9 broken threads. Ah! In an instant, miserable screams rang out one after another. Everywhere the 9-petal snow lotuses passed, the demigods present were all instantly sliced apart, turning into flesh and blood that filled the sky. Some half-gods were even struck by 3 snow lotuses at the same time, turning into a mist of blood on the spot. In the blink of an eye, 7 to 8 half-gods were either dead or injured. The dense battlefield had been cleared. Seeing the situation, the rest of the fighters retreated in shock, clearing up the battlefield. In front of half-god, normal half-gods were as easy as chopping chives. The 9 lotuses were no longer obstructed, turning into broken threads as they attacked Su Yu. At the same time, Shang Xiulian waved her hand, and 3 icy snow lotuses flew out from her sleeves, surrounding her to prevent Su Yu from using his lightning escape to launch a sneak attack. However, Su Yu did not use thunder techniques. Instead, he weaved signs with one hand, and a blue ball flew out of his index finger. Once the sphere appeared, it emitted a misty blue light beam, which enveloped Su Yu within it. Puff! Puff! At the same time, a series of muffled noises could be heard. The 9 beams of light collided with a light pillar, tearing a faint crack on it before they were repelled. Following that, the light pillar rapidly healed. The 9 frigid ice snow lotuses were unable to break through it at all. This scene startled the disciples of the 18 blessed and heavenly lands. They stared at the blue pearl in bewilderment. Their eyes were filled with bewilderment and confusion. Obviously, they more or less recognized the origin of this item, but they weren't sure. Shang Xuelian's expression stiffened as a look of deep shock appeared on her face. She said word by word, "Dry cloud, 5 elemental formation." As an enemy of the returning principal palace, the White Lotus sect was naturally familiar with the name of this item. While Shang Xuelian was still in shock, 9 jade-green fragmentary threads suddenly flew out from the ground nearby. They formed a net-like shape in the air, enveloping Shang Xuelian within it. However, Shang Xuelian was already prepared for this sudden attack. The 3 lotus flowers circling around her spun and deflected the 9 steel needles. However, at the moment when the steel needles were deflected, a light beam attacked her. It was Su Yu, who was stepping on a blue ball. Shang Xuelian's expression changed slightly. The vital energy in her body surged out of the surface of her body and gathered on her fists. She extended her hands to block the attack, while she activated the 12 white lotuses to attack. Puff, puff, puff. The blue light ball collided with Su Yu. Shang Xuelian's face turned red. She let out a groan and took several steps back. Due to the intense friction caused by the collision, her pure white palms were abraded. Traces of fresh blood seeped out. In the next exchange, Shang Xuelian was still at a slight disadvantage. Shang Xuelian shook her palms, her expression filled with disdain. I had wanted to see what was so special about the disciple that the returning principal palace sent in through another channel. However, it seems that he is only SOSO. Even with the help of a treasure like the Dry Cloud 5 elemental formation, he only has half of my abilities. If she had wanted to take the opportunity to kill the people of the returning principal palace, she could have looked for Yu Chan, who had a higher cultivation level. She had attacked Su Yu, whom she had never met, because he had entered through a special channel, which made her feel uneasy. Hence, she had tested him. After a few exchanges, she had a rough understanding of the disciple's abilities and background. With one of the Dry Cloud 5 elemental formation in his hands, it seemed that he was someone that the returning principal palace had taken a liking to. Yu Chan was probably not lying, but his abilities were only average. The fear in his heart had unknowingly weakened by a lot. Chou Ziming, Bai Qi, and Ming Fei, who were observing from the side, also had expressions of contemplation. Chou Ziming and Ming Fei did not think too much about it. However, Bai Qi was a little excited. Su Yu's abilities were much stronger than when they had first met. The stronger he was, the more confident he would be in killing the old man in the painting. With a wave of her hand, the 12 icy cold snow lotuses were kept by Shang Xuelian. She no longer had the intention to continue fighting. Let's stop here. Your abilities are average, and you are no match for me at the moment, Shang Xuelian said casually. To her surprise, Su Yu's frosty face revealed a faint smile. You launched a sneak attack and almost took my life. Now you want to end things with just a few words? Did you ask for my opinion? The crowd was in an uproar. Su Yu had used all his trump cards, but they were only equal to 50% of Shang Xuelian's abilities. Now that he was unwilling to let things go, wasn't he courting death? Shang Xuelian was stunned, but she understood. She let out a disdainful laugh and looked Su Yu up and down. Hee, you think too highly of yourself, and you lack self-awareness. Disappear from my sight before I get angry. Otherwise, you will have to bear the consequences. A threat of killing intent flashed past her eyes. Upon hearing this, Su Yu remained silent, as if he had admitted defeat. Shang Xuelian glanced at him, her eyes filled with disdain. She then turned to leave. Suddenly, Su Yu's voice could be heard from behind her. So, are you done with your nonsense? She had launched a sneak attack on him out of nowhere and had almost taken his life twice. Yet, she wanted to end things with just a few words. What did she take Su Yu for? Shang Xuelian stopped in her tracks and turned around. Her face was covered in a layer of frost. You don't know your place. Since you want to die, I will grant you your wish. With a creak, she shook her sleeves and 12 icy cold snow lotuses flew out from each of her sleeves. There were 24 of them in total. They circled above Shang Xuelian's head. They were crystal clear, and they reflected the mottled sunlight of 5 different colors. They made Shang Xiulian's figure look dreamy. Seeing this, the crowd of half-gods retreated far away in fear. These 24 icy cold snow lotuses were enough to fight against more than 20 half-gods present. This woman's combat abilities were not to be underestimated. Quick! Shang Xiulian let out a low grunt. Her 10 fingers rotated, and she weaved signs repeatedly. The 24 lotuses flew towards Su Yu like a storm. Su Yu did not dare underestimate them. He tapped the ground with the tip of his foot, and the blue ball under his feet released a brilliant blue light pillar, blocking the attacks from the icy cold snow lotuses. But Shang Xiulian let out a disdainful laugh. It's useless. Even though treasures are good, you don't even have vital energy. The power of the dry cloud, 5 elemental formations, orbs in your hands, is merely superficial. After her speech, the 24 snow lotuses turned into thin, rotating blades and slashed towards Su Yu with the power to slice through space. According to the previous exchange, Su Yu should have been able to block them easily. But when the first icy cold snow lotus attacked, even though it did not break through the light pillar, the impact of the snow lotuses was extremely great. Chapter 491. Without waiting for Su Yu to stabilize himself, his second, third, fourth, until the last lotus formed a string of pearls, charging towards Su Yu. When the fourth frigid ice snow lotus collided with it, a small crack actually appeared on the light pillar. Su Yu was shocked. Such a situation had only occurred when he was facing the Thunder Spirit at the Thunder Emperor Mountain. Even though the defensive power of a single pearl could not compare to an entire spell, the fact that Shang Xiulian was able to break through it showed that her abilities were extraordinary. What she said was true. She had only used half of her abilities in the previous exchange. Now that she had used her full power, Su Yu felt the pressure increase. With a grunt, Su Yu tossed his palm into the air. The 9 yin-yang formation descended, revolving and enveloping Shang Xiulian. She wore a disdainful expression. It might be useful against top-notch half-gods, but against me, you are just displaying your slight skill before an expert. As she spoke, Shang Xiulian's red lips parted slightly, and a small snow lotus flew out from her mouth. The snow lotus flew into the air, exploding abruptly. The vital energy contained within it swept across the surroundings, easily dispersing the 9 yin-yang formation. But Su Yu was not surprised. Taking advantage of the moment when Shang Xiulian was distracted, he controlled the blue ball to dodge the continuous attacks of the icy cold snow lotus. At the same time, he formed a complicated seal with one hand. Very quickly, his eyes closed, his life force disappearing. It was as if Su Yu had died on the spot. This scene caused the eyebrows of the 3 people on the spell to twitch simultaneously. There was finally a ripple in the 3 people's calm expressions, and they looked bewildered. It was as if even they did not understand how Su Yu's life force had disappeared in an instant. Shang Xiulian was also slightly shocked, unable to understand the inside story behind Su Yu's sudden death. While she was bewildered, she suddenly felt a heart-wrenching pain in her soul, and she could not help but let out a horrible shriek. Her fair face suddenly turned red. Her facial features contorted due to the pain, and she could not help but let out a horrible shriek. Losing control, the 24 ice pillars that were chasing after Su Yu fell to the ground without a sound. Bai Qi and Ming Fei's pupils dilated. As ghosts, they immediately thought of something, and a black, ghostly energy flashed past their eyes. With their ghostly eyes, they were shocked to discover that a figure that looked extremely similar to Su Yu had struck Shang Xiulian's soul with a palm, causing a few cracks to appear on her soul. Soul separation. The 2 ghosts sucked in a breath of cold air at the same time, and the way they looked at Su Yu was instantly filled with surprise. As far as they knew, only divine masters and above were able to separate their souls from their bodies. Su Yu was just a guy who hadn't even reached the half-god realm, so how did he manage to separate his soul from his body? Su Yu was about to unleash his second palm when he suddenly felt something. He met Bai Qi and Ming Fei's gaze and was shocked. He had been discovered. Without any hesitation, he returned to his physical body. With the abilities of those two ghosts, it seemed like they were very good at dealing with souls. So, how could Suyu expose himself in front of them for too long? The moment he returned to his body, Suyu's eyes glowed with a ferocious light. He shouted in a low voice, and the 9 yin-yang formation, which had been dispersed, quietly reformed and enveloped Shang Xuelian. At this moment, Shang Xuelian was still suffering from the pain of her soul being damaged. So, she had no time to deal with Suyu. If nothing unexpected happened, Shang Xuelian would be killed by Suyu. Countless people looked at the scene in disbelief. Among them, there was one person who wore a cold smile that was difficult to detect. But, seeing that Suyu was about to kill Shang Xuelian, at the most crucial moment, Suyu did not kill her. Instead, he raised his hand and waved, causing the steel needles to return to him. Moreover, he retreated rapidly, grabbing Yuchan and rising into the sky. He had left the vicinity of the stone forest for some unknown reason. Yuchan was at a loss. Why did you stop? Where are we going? Among the shocked crowd below, there was one person whose expression was slightly gloomy. Cho Ziming, who was within the spell, looked at Suyu with an unfriendly gaze. He then looked at the people from both sides, who were in a mess, and let out a light grunt. Forget it, I have killed enough anyway. At once, the many half-deities had an extremely bad feeling about this. Some of the smarter ones realized that something was amiss. Their figures flashed, and they flew into the sky. Their actions attracted the attention of the rest of the people, and they flew into the sky one after another. Stay here. Cho Ziming let out a cold grunt and clenched his fist. A strange scene appeared at once. The people who had flown into the sky were like birds that had lost their wings. Their spirit energy was sucked out of their bodies, and they lost the ability to fly. They fell down like raindrops. Some people flew thousands of feet into the sky, and with a thump, they fell to the ground and became mincemeat on the spot. Following which, the sound of flesh falling from the sky and hitting the ground could be heard continuously, followed by pathetic cries that pierced through the sky. The 30 or so lives that had been fresh a moment ago had been reduced to a bloody mess in the blink of an eye. The scene was extremely tragic. Yuchan, who was in the sky, let out a cry as well. The spirit energy in her body had been sealed. If Suyu had not grabbed her, she would have fallen to her death on the spot. What is going on? Yuchan was extremely shocked. Looking around, she saw that apart from Shang Xuelian, the rest of the people around the spell of the stone forest had either become corpses or had been reduced to flesh and blood. Only a few of them were severely injured, and they were wailing in pain on the ground. In the blink of an eye, the surroundings of the stone forest had become hell on earth. With Suyu's transparent eyes, he could see that apart from Suyu, the two ghosts, and the people from the 4 great ancient clans who were protected by Ming Fei, the rest of the disciples of the 18 blessed and heavenly lands had a black chain that was difficult to see with the naked eye. They had not noticed it until this moment, and it had sealed everyone's spirit energy, causing them to suffer heavy casualties in an instant. The other end of the black chain was connected to the spell within the stone forest. Every chain was devouring the blood essence of the dead, and following the blood essence, it was channeled into the spell. Under Suyu's transparent eyes, a faint layer of blood appeared on the surface of the spell. This was a sign that the spell was about to be activated. Cho Ziming walked down the spell with large strides. He flicked his 10 fingers, and 10 bolts of powerful vital energy shot out from his body, killing the half-gods that were still alive. At once, the black chain absorbed a large amount of blood essence, causing the spell to shine brighter. However, it still seemed to be a little short of maturity. Cho Ziming looked at Shang Xuelian coldly, sending a bolt of vital energy over. But Shang Xuelian's pained expression suddenly disappeared, replaced by a cold expression. Her figure retreated agilely, and at the same time, she took out 24 snow lotuses, revolving in front of her. Thump, 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 the sound of something shattering could be heard. With a casual bolt of vital energy, the icy snow lotuses were shattered like paper. When the last snow lotus shattered, it struck Shang Xuelian's body. With a groan, Shang Shuilian spat out a mouthful of blood. Her figure was thrown back 100 zhang, and a bloody hole the size of a fist appeared on her abdomen. It was a terrifying sight. As a half-fairy, Shang Shuilian could not withstand a single blow from Cho Ziming. This was the difference between a half-fairy with 3 vital energy crystals and a half-fairy with 1 vital energy crystal. The abilities of the two of them were worlds apart. But using the force of the blow, she landed not far away from Suyu. She shot Suyu an unwilling gaze. "He will not let you off. You can only fight him with me." Suyu's gaze fell on her rapidly healing abdomen, and he could not help but be shocked. She was still alive. This woman's recovery ability was so strong. This was definitely not the recovery ability of a half-fairy. Hearing this, Suyu nodded his head quickly. "I think I have no other choice." Previously, he had noticed that the black chain would absorb the blood of the dead. The stronger the person, the crazier the absorption would be. Even though Suyu did not know why the black chain was absorbing the blood, he knew that it was not a wise move to let it absorb enough. Hence, he intentionally spared Shang Shuilian's life. Shang Shuilian heaved a sigh of relief, looking at Cho Ziming with cold eyes. "Why are you doing this? Can the soul-seizing palace afford to kill all the disciples who entered?" Bai Qi and Ming Fei stood at the side, expressionless. It was obvious that they had known this would happen. Cho Ziming walked over with his hands behind his back, letting out a cold grunt. "That is because you are stupid. After fighting for so long, you did not realize that the other side of the transportation spell had been tampered with." Hearing this, Shang Shuilian was shocked. Impossible. No one has been transported to the 8th level of the Divine Pavilion. How could the transportation spell there have been tampered with? Cho Ziming let out a profound laugh. "No one. You seem to have forgotten about the demonic woman from the Red Blood Palace." Demonic woman? Shang Shuilian couldn't help but shiver. Her eyes were filled with deep fear. This woman did not show any signs of appearing at the 7th level of the Divine Pavilion. I am guessing that she has most likely been transported to the 8th level of the Divine Pavilion and tampered with the transportation spell, causing the transportation spell on this side to be unable to operate. Hearing this, Shang Shuilian's eyes filled with fear and unease. It was these two friends who provided us with the secret technique to repair the spell. We only need a large amount of the blood of powerful fighters to forcefully remove the tampering done by the other party, allowing us to successfully activate the entanglement spell. Hence, you useless trash, since you would not be able to gain anything from the mysterious heavenly palace, why don't you help us, who are more hopeful? Now, we only lack the blood of a half-fairy like you to successfully activate the spell. Cho Ziming let out a cold grunt, his sharp eagle eyes shooting out 2 beams of light abruptly. His gaze contained an extremely violent aura. It was as if it had a physical form, destroying everything in its path, giving off a strange pressure. Pupil technique. Shang Shuilian's expression changed. Vital energy gushed out from the only vital energy crystal in her body, forming a Tinjong large snow lotus that enveloped her. Thump! The giant snow lotus did not even have the slightest bit of resistance, crumbling on the spot. Shang Shuilian's chest was pierced by one of the gazes, her body pierced through from the front to the back. With a pathetic groan, her petite body was sent flying hundreds of zhang away, crashing heavily into the stone forest. Another pair of eyes shot toward Suyu. It shot toward the beam of light. The blue beam of light flickered at once, flickering rapidly. Slap! With a crisp sound, the blue beam of light was broken by the tyrannical pupil technique. But it was not over yet. The gaze was no longer obstructed, wanting to pierce through Suyu's head in an instant. Suyu's heart turned cold. This was the power of a half-fairy with 3 vital energy crystals. That level of oppression was stronger than any enemy Suyu had ever faced. Furthermore, there were 2 ghost kings of the fairy realm glaring at him. Chapter 492. At that critical moment, Suyu's body suddenly glowed with a black light. A layer of ferocious armor suddenly appeared. Clang! At that moment, the gaze collided with Suyu. A piercing screech could be heard. The intense gaze caused sparks to fly as it collided with the eternal stone king armor. Suyu tapped his toes, his figure shifting to the side. The gaze brushed past the armor, flying out. Cho Zimi increased his brows. He had not expected Suyu to be able to block his pupil technique. Even though the pupil technique was not his strongest trump card, its power was still extremely strong, close to the attack of a fairy realm fighter. Even a half-fairy like Sheng Shuilian, who had crystallized her vital energy, had ended up in such a sorry state. Unexpectedly, it was this human king brat who could block it head-on. You have quite a few treasures. Cho Ziming let out a cold grunt, killing intent swirling between his brows. Ming Fei's eyes shone brightly. There was even a hint of hidden surprise in her eyes. The armor on his body belongs to me. Cho Ziming snorted. Do you think I'm stupid? The quality of this armor is ridiculously high. It was obvious that both of them recognized the quality of the armor. It was unusually high. Hearing this, the Khan Bai Chi let out a cold grunt. The Eternal Stone King armor was his. He turned his gaze and was about to speak up to protect Suyu when the painting in his robes trembled. His soul transmitted the slightly shocked voice of the old man in the painting. A broken top-grade spiritual artifact? Bai Chi, I'll immediately obtain the armor and kill this brat at the same time. My instincts tell me that this kid is dangerous. Bai Chi's heart sank. Did this mean that he had to kill Suyu? His life was in the hands of this old man. How could he not obey? Bai Chi looked deeply at Suyu and felt that it was a pity. From Suyu's performance, he was the most suitable candidate to kill the soul old man, especially since he was proficient in the soul separation technique. But now that the soul old man had given the order, he could only kill Suyu. He sighed helplessly, looking at Suyu with murderous intent. Whoosh whoosh. Ming Fei and Bai Chi's figures flew towards Suyu at the same time, straight for the Eternal Stone King armor. Seeing that, Cho Ziming's eyes glowed fiercely. He was faster than the two of them, fighting to kill Suyu. He shouted coldly, "Hand over the armor!" In an instant, the three experts, who had abilities comparable to the fairy realm, attacked Suyu at the same time. In the distance, Yu Chan's heart sank to the bottom. The worst-case scenario had still happened. Three half-immortals with perfected true crystal cultivation attacked together. Even if Suyu had the entire Dry Cloud 5-elemental formation as his trump card, he was definitely not a match for the three of them. On the other hand, Suyu's expression was surprisingly calm, and he didn't seem afraid at all. He merely glanced at Bai Chi in surprise before regaining his indifferent expression. He chuckled and said, "Fine, let me experience the strength of you true crystal realm half-immortals." Taking a light breath, Suyu suddenly felt a great pressure. If it was just one of them, Suyu might still be able to put up a fight. However, there were three of them, and the pressure he felt was unprecedented. An illusion of death descended upon the depths of his heart. There was a high chance that he would die here. However, just as he was about to attack, the three people suddenly stopped in their tracks, looking toward the horizon with a grave expression. Over there, two silhouettes flashed like lightning. One of them was a lady in her early 20s. Her features were picturesque, and she had an otherworldly aura. She was like a lotus flower that had just emerged from the water. The other was a young man who was about 18 or 19 years old, following closely behind her with a humble expression. As for Bai Chi and Ming Fei, their gazes were unusually grave, and they even revealed hints of fear. Cho Ziming's expression gradually turned grave. When he saw the face of the person who had arrived, his body trembled violently. His face was filled with shock and disbelief. Lu Chuyi of the Purple Cloud Palace, an almighty divine master. How could she enter the mysterious, heavenly divine pavilion? Out of fear, he involuntarily cried out, "What? An almighty divine master?" Bai Chi and Ming Fei's hearts trembled, their faces filled with shock. To fairy realm cultivators, a divine master was a supreme existence that they could only look up to. The mysterious heavenly divine pavilion was clearly a training ground for immortal realm fighters. But a divine master, who had surpassed the fairy realm, had suddenly appeared. Suyu's heart skipped a beat. An almighty divine master? Could she be the senior Lu that Wu Aoyue had mentioned? The arrival of an almighty divine master caused them, who were about to fight, to feel as though they were facing a great enemy. After Lu Chuyi descended, she did not look at any of the four of them. She only creased her eyebrows as she looked at the flesh and blood on the ground. After a moment, she raised her eyes and looked at Cho, Ziming, and the other two with displeasure. 5 Ghost Transportation Technique. The method that the 2 ghosts had provided to reactivate the transportation spell was the 5 Ghost Transportation Technique. To think that 2 ghosts would sneak into the mysterious heavenly divine pavilion. Lu Qi coldly looked at Ming Fei and Bai Qi, revealing the identities of the 2 of them, but she only glanced at Ming Fei. Instead, it was Bai Qi who paused for a moment. Finally, she looked at Cho Ziming. You are Cho Ziming from the Soul-Seizing Palace? Have you seen the disciple of the Purple Cloud Palace, Wu Aoyue? Hearing this, Cho Ziming's body trembled, as though he was under heavy pressure. He hurriedly said, Senior, I have never seen the disciple of the Purple Cloud Palace. She has never been here? Lu Chuyi creased her eyebrows, her eyes revealing a thoughtful expression. I am afraid that something has happened to Aoyue. Hearing this, the expression of the youth behind her changed. Senior Lu, what should we do? If Junior Aoyue does not cooperate, will we delay your plans? Lu Chuyi creased her eyebrows, muttering to herself for a moment. She suddenly saw Su Yu, Yu Chan, and Shang Xuelian. As for Shang Xuelian, she only glanced at her briefly. As for Yu Chan, she looked at Su Yu for a long time. In the end, she looked at Su Yu. Her dreamy and beautiful eyes flickered with doubt, as if she had detected an unusual aura. Su Yu's heart thumped. Could she have sensed Wu Aoyue? The 9-jade spiritual pearl was like another space. How strong was this woman's perception to be able to detect Wu Aoyue's presence? But she quickly shook her head, as though she had eliminated Su Yu as a suspect. She then looked at Yu Chan again. Follow me. Yu Chan was overwhelmed by the favor. She had actually been called out by a strong divine master. This was something unimaginable in the returning principal palace. She did not even have the qualifications to be an outer sanctum disciple. The divine masters of the faction would not even look at her, much less personally call her out and entrust her with such an important task. But she immediately felt uneasy, her heart filled with fear. Chapter 493. But Suyu gave her a look of tacit approval. Yu Chan walked in front of Lu Chuyi, feeling uneasy. Lu Chuyi extended her palm and placed it on the top of her head. She closed her eyes and slowly sensed. After a while, she revealed a gratified expression. Fortunately, you are still a virgin, and you have not condensed any vital energy crystals. You are the most suitable candidate to replace Wu Aoyue. Yu Chan was even more uneasy, as if this divine being wanted her to do something very important. Lu Chuyi retracted her hand and nodded. Follow me for a period of time. If I succeed, I will bring you back to the Purple Cloud Palace. Yu Chan was elated, unable to believe her ears. Enter the Purple Cloud Palace? Even Cho Ziming was shocked and envious. The Purple Cloud Palace was one of the 2 great forces that ruled over the 18 blessed and heavenly lands. Once inside, their status would rise, and the returning principal palace could not compare. Even Cho Ziming did not have the confidence to enter such a force. It could be said that Yu Chan had soared to the heavens. Thank you for your kindness, Elder. Yu Chan was startled, immediately kneeling to express her gratitude. She secretly glanced at Suyu. Suyu gave her a congratulatory smile, his lips moving as he mouthed, I will help her remove the seal if I have the chance. Yu Chan could not help but reveal a complicated expression. This young man, whom she had not known for long, had left a deep impression on her. Lu Chui nodded, her beautiful eyes sweeping past Cho, Ziming, and the other 2. As for the 3 of you, pausing, Lu Chui raised her slender finger, a cold expression on her face. You have gone overboard by massacring the disciples of the 18 blessed and heavenly lands. You will follow me for the rest of the time. Whether you live or die will depend on your luck. Saying this, she took light steps toward Cho Ziming, who was at the front. Cho Ziming's face was pale. He looked at the figure walking toward him as if he was facing a landslide. He was extremely terrified. Without hesitation, he turned to escape. The vital energy contained in the 3 vital energy crystals surged out, turning into a pair of powerful wings filled with vital energy. With a flap, he disappeared, appearing 1,000 miles away in an instant. However, to everyone's surprise, Lu Chui didn't seem to have any intention of chasing after him. Instead, she took a step forward casually. This step was clearly a casual one, but it went straight to Cho Ziming's back. It was as if the entire earth had retreated 1,000 miles, and she had only taken a single step. Such a remarkable ability to travel 1,000 miles in one step caused Su Yu to secretly click his tongue. Sensing that danger was close at hand, Cho Ziming did not hesitate. Vital energy gushed out from all over his body and covered the surface of his body. At the same time, he abruptly turned his head, and 2 rays of light shot out from his eyes. At such a close distance, who would be able to react? The might of this pupil technique was extremely close to the level of the fairy realm. Even if this woman was a divine master, how could her body resist it? What was surprising was that she really didn't put up any form of resistance. The 2 powerful eye-sorcery gazes were actually stopped in mid-air when they landed on his body. It was as if they were frozen in place, unable to advance any further. Lu Chui pointed with her slender hand unhurriedly, and the 2 corporeal eyes shattered in the air. A legendary level cultivation technique? Comprehending stage 1 is not bad, Lu Chui said casually. She then raised her finger and tapped Cho Ziming's body gently. The vital energy protecting his body was treated as nothing by her finger. It passed through and tapped on his back. At that moment, Cho Ziming let out a pathetic cry. His entire body flew backward, as if he had been electrocuted. He tumbled 7 to 8 times in the air before stopping. However, Cho Ziming didn't care about the pain. Instead, he revealed a shocked expression. What did you do to my heart? Lu Chui calmly said, a restriction. After saying this, she looked toward Bai Qi and Ming Fei, who had taken the opportunity to escape. She stood at her original position, not moving an inch. Her 5 fingers grabbed forward. With a crackling sound, the space trembled. 2 silhouettes were teleported from 2 different directions. They were Bai Qi and Ming Fei, who had escaped 10,000 miles away. They maintained their sprinting posture as if they were dead. They didn't move an inch, their faces still filled with fear. Shockingly, they had been frozen in space. What kind of terrifying magical power was this? Not only did he freeze a person 10,000 miles away, he even easily teleported him back. So you secretly sucked in a breath of cold air. The magical powers of an almighty divine master were beyond his imagination. Lu Chui pointed at the hearts of the 2 ghosts casually and placed a restriction spell on their hearts. The 3 ferocious beings who had dominated the 7th level of the divine pavilion and massacred all the disciples of the 18 blessed and heavenly lands have been sealed and turned into slaves in the blink of an eye. All of this had happened in the time of a few breaths. After subduing the 3 of them, Lu Chui glanced sideways at Su Yu. Her beautiful brows creased once again, and she muttered to herself for a moment, "It seems like you have the aura of my junior nephew. You might have to follow me." As expected, even though Wu Aoyue had not been exposed, she was already suspected. Without thinking, lightning flashed around Su Yu's body. His entire person turned into lightning and disappeared from his original spot. Lu Chui's expression was calm. Lightning-based techniques? Not bad. But then she revealed a look of surprise. It doesn't seem like a normal lightning-based magical power. 100,000 miles in a night. Even the lightning-based magical power of the Purple Cloud Palace is no better than this. Withdrawing her expression, Lu Chui took light steps. A casual step was 1,000 miles away. Moreover, she locked on Su Yu. 100,000 miles away, a bolt of lightning flickered. Su Yu fell from it, summoning the divine flying ship without hesitation. Infusing spirit energy, the divine flying ship took off immediately. But in 3 breaths' time, Suyu felt a suffocating pressure envelop him. The surrounding space had solidified out of thin air. Not good. It was that woman who was teleporting. With a low grunt, the lightning around Suyu's body flashed again, and his figure disappeared. This time, he only appeared 50,000 miles away. The lightning escape depleted the thunderbolts in his body greatly. Every time he used it, there would be less of it. But before Suyu could get far, the frightening pressure attacked him again. Suyu's expression sank. A divine master appearing in the mysterious heavenly divine pavilion was against the rules. Without hesitation, Suyu forcefully used the lightning escape again, appearing 20,000 miles away. After fleeing for a while, the space pressure attacked him again. Finally, Suyu used the last bit of thunderbolt energy he had left to use the lightning escape, appearing 10,000 miles away in an instant. But when Suyu appeared, his vision blurred. Lu Chuyi had caught up to him, teleporting 3 feet in front of Suyu. That delicate face, that picturesque appearance, that fair skin, that sharp nose, that dreamy eyes that were like gems, were right in front of him. The faint fragrance of her body wafted into Suyu's nose. Suyu's scalp turned numb. Lu Chuyi had a faint smile, her expression beautiful. She extended a slender finger and pointed at the space between Suyu's brows. Chapter 494. Whoosh! A cold and obscure object was shot into the space between Suyu's brows, then quickly entered his heart. Suyu's face turned pale. He used his transparent eyes to scan his heart, discovering a golden glow in his heart. It was a combination of soul energy and a shred of vital energy. If Suyu disobeyed, the other party could use that wisp of soul energy to control the vital energy from afar and cause Suyu's heart to explode from the inside out, killing him instantly. This was a type of restriction. Sensing this, Suyu's heart calmed down. Without batting an eyelid, he quickly formed the Great Thunder Heart technique and inserted it into the golden restriction. As long as Suyu willed it, the Great Thunder Heart technique could destroy the soul energy in the golden glow. The remaining vital energy would not be controlled, and the danger would be resolved. However, on the surface, Suyu was naturally filled with fear and trepidation. Not bad. At least in terms of evasion techniques, you are stronger than the 3 of them. I suspect that even if the 3 of them fought you, they might not have been able to keep you here. After restraining Suyu, Lu Chuyi observed Suyu deeply. Her gaze then fell on Suyu's space ring. With a grab, the black space ring shook violently, about to fly out of his hand. Suyu's heart changed. Within the space ring were treasures like the Cosmos Thunder Sword and the 5 elemental strong Thunder Seal. Once discovered by this woman, he would be forced to erase the imprint. He clenched his fist, catching the space ring that was about to fly out of his hand. This was undoubtedly a provocation. Lu Chuyi raised her brows, her gaze turning cold. You dare resist? Do you want to die? Or is there something in the ring that belongs to my disciple that cannot be seen? Suyu was silent, many thoughts running through his mind. Lu Chuyi's expression gradually turned cold, suddenly realizing Suyu's thoughts. She laughed. I'm a divine master. Why would I want something from a lowly human king like you? I will let you go after I check if there is anything that belongs to my disciple. Suyu could not express his difficulties. Wu Aoyue was in the 9 jade spiritual ring, so her things were naturally not in the ring. But there was something even more troublesome than Wu Aoyue in the ring. Whoosh! Lu Chuyi was slightly infuriated, and as she furrowed her brows, she made a grabbing motion in the air. The space around Suyu instantly froze, trapping him within it, just like the frozen by Qi and Ming Fei. Suyu clenched his teeth. With a whooshing sound, the space around Suyu suddenly shone with 5 brilliant lights. They were 5 colorful light balls, which were twinkling and revolving. Then, they shot out 5 beams of light that enveloped Suyu. In an instant, the confined space was pushed away. Dry cloud, 5 elemental array. Lu Chuyi's beautiful face flickered with surprise and confusion. She looked at Suyu, her beautiful eyes filled with doubt. What a surprise! Yu Songchuan would give his famous treasure to a lowly human king disciple, like you, to refine. It was clear that she had misunderstood Su Yu's identity. Su Yu retreated slowly as he looked at the woman vigilantly. He then said in a deep voice, "Elder, I don't have any enmity with you, so can we just let it go?" A cold light flickered in his eyes, and he was on high alert. "Oh, do you think that the dry cloud 5 elemental formation can block my control of the restriction?" Lu Chui asked with a faint smile. But Su Yu was not afraid, calmly saying, "You can try." Lu Chui's smile faded. She was about to activate the restriction when her body suddenly swayed. She felt a piercing pain in her brain, and she involuntarily let out a cry of pain. When he looked at Su Yu, his eyes were filled with shock. "Did you manage to break my seal?" She had not expected this scene. She had never thought that a young lad would be able to break the restriction she had personally planted. Another lightning-based magical ability. It looks like your attainments in lightning-based techniques are not to be underestimated, Lu Chui said in surprise, feeling her soul being shattered by the lightning. So he was calm. "Elder, have you thought it through?" Lu Chui was a little annoyed. "What if I say no?" Hearing this, Su Yu's eyes flickered with viciousness. "I advise you to stop now. If I am not wrong, even though you are an almighty divine master, you will not be able to break free from the restrictions of the mysterious heavenly divine pavilion." From Lu Chi's series of attacks, Su Yu had acutely realized that even though she was strong, her attacks were well controlled. She had not used the power of the fairy realm. If there were no accidents, she would not be able to use the power of the fairy realm. Even though the situation was still dangerous, there was still a chance of survival. Lu Chi's calm and dignified expression revealed a dangerous aura, her eyes flickering with a faint killing intent. "Oh, you mean that I cannot do anything to you?" So you did not speak, tacitly agreeing. "If this treasure was in Yu Songchuan's hands, I would indeed need to be wary. But in your hands, you cannot even use a tenth of its power. You have too much confidence in yourself." Lu Chi shook her head, a golden leaf falling from her sleeves. Its entire body was golden and dazzling, but it exuded an extremely powerful spiritual pressure. The space within a radius of 10 li shook and instantly froze. Even Su Yu suddenly felt the space outside the spell become oppressive. It looked like the fact that she could so easily teleport and freeze people was most likely due to this treasure. What exactly was this golden leaf? Why was it so nature-defying? But Su Yu had no time to think. With a tap of Lu Chui's hand, the golden leaf spun and flew above Su Yu's head. At that moment, a creaking sound could be heard. The dry cloud 5 elemental formation felt like it could not withstand the pressure. Looking at the space outside the spell, there were countless black cracks. It was like a balloon being forcefully squeezed, with cracks appearing and about to explode. No wonder the dry cloud 5 elemental formation was so strange. If not for the formation, Su Yu would have been crushed into a pile of meat paste. Seeing that the dry cloud 5 elemental formation could not withstand the pressure, Su Yu did not panic. Instead, he shouted with a cold glint, "I hope you do not regret this." With a cold grunt, Su Yu waved his sleeves. A golden ring of light flew out, flashing down from the top of Lu Chui's head, intending to trap her. A Buddha-like treasure? Lu Chui was surprised, then grunted. "It might be effective against ghosts, but what use is it against me?" Su Yu raised his finger and pointed. A terrifying bolt of vital energy was about to send the golden leaf flying. But at that moment, the golden ring, which had been suppressing Su Yu, suddenly changed its direction, catching the golden leaf above Su Yu's head off guard. The golden ring shrank from the size of a palm to the size of a leaf, imprisoning the golden leaf. At the same time, the 5-colored light pillar around Su Yu suddenly dispersed, coldly enveloping the golden leaf. As Su Yu quickly formed hand seals, the 5-colored light pillar shrank rapidly, compressing the leaf in the blink of an eye. With the ghost-suppressing golden ring inside and the dry cloud 5 elemental formation outside, Even if the golden leaf was nature-defying, it would not be able to escape. At that moment, the surrounding space pressure dissipated. As the five-colored light pillar rotated, the golden leaf obediently landed on Su Yu's palm. Lu Chuyi realized that something was amiss, but it was too late. Her expression turned cold. "Your target was my treasure from the start." Su Yu did not hide it, calmly saying, "The greatest threat is not you, but this treasure that can control space. Which one do you think I will deal with first?" Lu Chuyi's expression was cold, but she was secretly controlling the golden leaf. But with the double restriction, she could not move at all. Thinking about how her treasure had been taken by a junior, Lu Chuyi could not suppress her anger. "Let's see what you can do without your protective treasure." Lu Chuyi closed in, her snow-white palm containing powerful spirit energy as it struck towards Su Yu's chest. Her palm had yet to reach him, but Su Yu already felt an overwhelming pressure, as if it wanted to destroy him. That frightening feeling made Su Yu feel even more pressured. A spiritual light flashed on the surface of his body, and the eternal stone king armor appeared. Thump! It was supposed to be a sure kill attack, but Lu Chuyi's palm felt as if it had struck an iron plate. The recoil caused her palm to go numb. Fortunately, she had the body of a divine master. How strong was her physical body? Her palm had been deflected, but it did not affect her in the slightest. No, it made her even angrier. "That's enough. You are just a junior, yet you have so many semi-manufactured spiritual artifacts. Be it the dry cloud 5 elemental formation, the ghost-suppressing golden ring, or the eternal stone king armor, they were all semi-manufactured spiritual artifacts." She finally understood why Su Yu had not been willing to hand over his space ring. If he had sensed that he had such a treasure, he would have taken it away. Even to a divine master, semi-manufactured spiritual artifacts were not bad choices. Moreover, the repeated encounters had caused her to feel rather infuriated. If not for the suppression of her cultivation level, Su Yu's life would have been in the blink of an eye. But now, if she overstepped her boundaries, she would definitely be transported out. Hence, fighting with Su Yu was extremely stifling. Su Yu was sent flying dozens of feet away, the blood in his body churning. When he looked down, his pupils shrank. On the eternal stone king armor, there was a vague, sunken palm print. This woman's seemingly weak palm had actually caved in the eternal stone king armor. A trickle of cold sweat trickled down Su Yu's forehead. This was the first time the eternal stone king armor had caved in. Thinking back, if he had used his physical body to take on that palm, his body would have been shattered. Her cultivation level had indeed been suppressed, but her divine master level physical body was not restricted in the slightest. Just her physical body alone was enough to kill most early-stage fairies. "Let's see how many times your broken armor can block me." Lu Chuyi was furious, her heart burning with rage. Thump! Another palm struck. How would Su Yu dare to take it head-on this time? Without a word, he raised his hand to summon the divine flying ship, stepping onto the flying ship and sprinting away. Lu Chuyi missed. Her face was filled with anger, and she clenched her teeth. "B****. Let's see how far you can run." Without the golden leaf, and with her cultivation level suppressed, she could not travel 1,000 miles in one step or teleport.